Big departure for what I've been doing recently. Back to my first speed run. Here I am, doing some Soulcalibur III, Chronicles of the Sword, my original speedrun. I've had a lot of fun with the Gold Box games recently, but I want to get back to working on this some more as well. This is one of my kind of niche categories. MCO is a little bit of a challenge mode where I can only make one character, so I make my dancer. Timing, it takes longer for a lot of reasons, including which I don't bother creating the rest of my party first. Since I don't need to, I go ahead and start the timing when I finish making the main character. So we've got here nothing special either, just going to go ahead and go. So this is Soulcalibur III, Chronicles of the Sword. Most people who will be watching this probably have been watching my runs of it before and familiar with it. So Soulcalibur III, of course, is a fighting game, the fourth game in the Soulcalibur series, because the first one was called Soul Blade. All the ones after that were named Soulcalibur, including all the sequels. Dreadnought is still best for that, and Unit Type Bandit. Alright. First, we've got a wonderful tutorial where they tell you about everything, and I try and skip through the text as fast as possible. So, it's a fighting game, but Soulcalibur III introduced the create a character function. Tails create a soul, as they call it. And so, as the first game to introduce it, they went heavy into creating a bunch of different things, including unique game modes that would take advantage of that. And this is one of those game modes, Chronicles of the Sword. It is actually a strategy RPG based on just kind of like a tactical strategy RPG, not turn-based one like most you'd be familiar with, but still moving units around a map in a similar fashion to things like Fire Emblem and Final Fantasy Tactics, Tactics Ogre, and all that. But, of course, it involves Soulcalibur combat in the battle between the units. You can have them fight out in the field, which is entirely non-RNG, completely different than most tactical RPGs. They will fight out at set intervals, doing a set amount of damage based on their statistics, unit type, etc. There's a little bit of depth involved in this map, though, even though most of the battle takes place on this. Most of the actual action is in the fighting game aspect of it. The Soulcalibur combat between them. It's got a basic kind of tactics-like story, too. You have three nations in opposition on this continent that have been at war for a very long time. They're in a period of peace, but of course we're going into a war again shortly after. We are a cadet in the military academy of the Grandal Empire. And we're learning the ropes. In the tutorial here, General Gerardo, the leader of the academy, teaches us how the battle progresses and all the things we need to do. Of course, your standard kind of later RPG and similar game type tutorial function, introducing the tutorial as a kind of semi-story element in the game, as opposed to the old ones that didn't give you any kind of tutorial, like the Gold Box games I've been doing more recently. The main objective in most of the Chronicles is to take the main stronghold, as we've done here, so the speedrunning tactics in this portion generally revolves around getting to the enemy stronghold as soon as possible. There are a couple of interesting things about it, though. There are 4 different unit types that you have, from infantry and cavalry to knights and bandits. Infantry are your most basic. They do the best overall damage to other units and are okay in their speed and damage to buildings. Cavalry are very fast in the field, slightly worse than infantry, fighting each other, but do horrible. They're the lowest damage against buildings. Knights are the slowest moving around the field. They do the most damage to buildings and are about as good as infantry at dealing with other units, but they are so slow, they are not worth it in the speedrun. But what I use pretty much only is, throughout most of the speedrun, I'll be using bandits, who are the second fastest and the second best at doing damage, next to cavalry and knights respectively. So they are overall the fastest at moving around the map and taking other strongholds. The combination of the two, they are much faster than any other unit. The drawback is that they will get utterly destroyed by any other unit on the field. Even cavalry, who are weaker than both knights and infantry in that way. They are far, far, far weaker. But that doesn't matter when we automatically go to Soulcalibur combat most of the time. So that's the primary way we're going to be moving about doing this portion of the game. For Soulcalibur combat, there are 17 weapon styles that are kind of unique to Soulcalibur 3. They're actually cheap versions of Tekken moves and moves from other Soulcalibur styles thrown in, kind of mixed together, but have their own interesting flavor. Some of them are actually kind of neat, but for the most part, they were not continued in any way. And that's a split, just slightly off. Only a second or two, which is pretty good for me usually. Okay, now we need to change Reese to a bandit, equip her with Atropos. This is all we've got for now. Actually, that's right. This is the faster way. It's been so long since I played this, I'm almost forgetting my strategies. It's a very simple game to speedrun. I don't really have anything in the way of notes because it's just so simple that I don't need to. There are a couple of things that are important to remember in each chronicle where guys start, but it's really easy to remember. There's not a lot of other kinds of standard RPG stuff you have to do, like grinding elements or buying of weapons. I consider it an RPG because it's an RPG style mode. Your characters do level up and you get to create your own characters, which is a big RPG thing. However, you don't really go about improving your weapon skills or anything. You don't have, even though you level up and gain stats, you don't really get any talents in the game. You would on a fresh file, but this game is pretty punishing enough as it is. I've experimented a little bit with fresh files, but they are extremely slow compared to the normal speedrun, and it's already 3 hours long plus on a normal speedrun of this game. So fresh file adding sometimes an hour or two onto that, since I don't have access to any of the super exploitable abilities and character weapon styles that I have, makes it just something I haven't put a lot of effort into. If I did, it might be a lot more likely to make it into a marathon, so I might have to work on that some more in the coming year if I want to try and get this into RPG Limit Break, which is one of my dreams, or even GDQ, if that were ever to happen. But it's definitely a difficulty here. So the main character that I've got is a dancer. Because, as I say, there are primarily 17 main weapons that your characters will use, and with a few exceptions, all of the characters that you'll meet, except for the 23 cameos by the regular Soulcalibur characters who are optional super bosses, will mostly be ignoring throughout the run because it's slow to fight them in most cases. You are otherwise not equipped to... all the other enemies use the 17, base styles that were created for these created soul characters. They later on abandoned that, even for created characters in the later games. They're all just wandering around with all your things. There's no special kinds of styles for created characters. You just use Shanghua or Mitsurugi or Yoshimitsu or whoever the heck you want to use. But all of the characters we'll be recruiting, except for our main character, are going to use these 17 instead. Now, there are 10 classes... No, there are more than that. There are 13 classes in the game, actually, excepting the ultimate class, the Swordmaster, who can use any of the 17 of the Create Soul weapon styles. Cutscenes are unskippable, unfortunately, so we have to meet Abilia here.
Good luck to you. Fight with all your
But other than the Swordmaster, each of the classes can use 5 styles. 2 of them are the Tales of Souls, which you only get after you've increased a character in this mode up to level 30. Then all characters of that class can have it unlocked for them to be able to use those Soul of Shanghua, Mitsurugi, etc. And otherwise, there are progressively, you start out with 1 style of the Creative styles that only you can use. At 10 level, you unlock the second one for all characters of that class. At level 20, you unlock the 3rd one for all created characters of that class. I need to specify that that's created characters. And then at 30, you do it for the Tales of. There are I have the rest of my party, our characters, they exist in the game. There are these NPCs, I guess you could say, but they're your playable units and such, similar to how you'd have in Fire Emblem or other ones like that have their own unique personalities and such, as it were. They have little reactions and stuff in games, so it's pretty simple since, you know, this is just a game mode within another game, so they didn't put a huge amount of personality into these characters, but they do have things they say. They have backgrounds and past that are kind of brought out a little bit that you'll see over the course of the run, but they have a weapon style, only a single weapon style that they can use. So I have Aeneas here, who is a Lancer. He's a knight who can use Lance. And Reese, who is a thief at this stage. I think she later turns into an assassin, but she uses the wave swords, which is one of the more interesting things here. Right now, they're all I have access to, so they're the people that I'm using, but both of them will become obsolete by later on in the game, unfortunately. There are a large amount of characters you can get. There are a couple more you could recruit optionally later on from fighting them on this map, but I ignore them because it's faster to do so, and they aren't really very beneficial to me. The two blue characters on the top and very bottom attacking my strongholds, they are Xiao Xin up top and Jin Kai on bottom. Chronicle 8, I believe, one of the two would join you, whichever one you defeated first, if you were to defeat them, but it adds text boxes in addition to the slowness of having to fight them. Now, for my created character, I am using the Dancer with the Xianghua style because Spin to Win is just too strong. As I showed at Speedy Fist Marathon a couple months back, largely in the Tales of and Souls for Xianghua and in the Quick Play using Xianghua, but it's very devastating here too. The one drawback is that in Chronicles of the Sword, only the Dancer can use Soul of Xianghua, and the Dancer has really, really horrible stats. Classes, besides determining what weapons you get, also determine the stats of your characters, and Dancers are horrible. But Xianghua is so powerful that it's great for a leader anyway. There are a lot of battles where the fastest thing is even with a Dancer just doing Spin to Win, so she's going to be doing the majority of the fighting for me. Now, I've lost a couple of strongholds. Every time a stronghold dies, it goes down one level to a minimum of 1. Each level has more hit points and also makes its mission more powerful. Missions are effects that are in the game. They're similar to, you know, mission battles from the original Soulcalibur and similar things. It's just an effect that's in play. Some of them are interesting and some of them are super basic. Like Defense Down means that my characters, because this is a level 4 stronghold, only my characters will have less defense in this fight, so I'll take a lot more damage. Makes it kind of dangerous. If Gerardo, the boss here, decides to be very strong, he could punish me very greatly. But it's usually not a problem for things like that because my all-out aggression is either wins me the game most of the time unless they decide to attack me, in which case I'm going to be dominated anyway. So again, this is the graduation test. Gerardo will join our party later on, spoilers, for small periods of and he'll be relatively useful for that. Unfortunately, he rolled away, so I wasn't able to combo up on him after my initial wall attack. I always like to taunt at the end of fights just because it's something that I do. Hence why my my one sub emote right now is MSKing Taunt. You have to back up. Whenever you have a boss in a cutscene, they will always show up first. Usually, however, if they don't have a cutscene, they will be the last character you fight in a group. You can see the graph there showing my stats. You can see their numbers as well, but you have to pause the game to do so, so there's really no need to know them specifically, so you'll never see me do that in a normal run of this game, check their stats, besides hit points, of course, that are always available. So far, the only one who's gotten a fight has been Partha. But that's okay. We'll have to get other people into combat here soon enough. So now we get introduced to our second most powerful character, Mega, who has access to the second most powerful weapon, the katana. So we're going to give him his Mirasame, which is probably the most broken weapon in the entire game. We'll do him. Okay, you actually, I almost forgot. I need to change you quickly to an infantry for this. Okay, and you both go at 3. Now, this is a map where it would let a normal a normal tactical RPG would call a route mission. You have to defeat all enemies in order to win. And So I've divided my characters up because of that. Normally, I would just charge towards the bottom route because that would be quickest to take the enemy stronghold out. But since I have to defeat all enemies, I have to split up since several of them are programmed and their AI script says to just charge and try and take my strongholds. And also, because of the time it takes to load, it's actually faster to go to the slower inventory just for this mission, largely, because I will end up taking this stronghold more slowly. It's a lot harder to, and time wasting for me to try to back off and go back and try and keep from taking it until these enemies end up showing up. Because these two are running up into the northern... Oh, and I need to start this battle immediately. Now, you may have noticed that I've staggered the commands for characters. Once you give a command to a character, they will, until you give them another command, they'll just keep moving forward until they reach their destination, fighting anybody in their way. But the minute that a Soul Calibur battle starts, that character's commands are cleared. They will stop what they were doing. This is the power of the katana. Shoulder charge is almost as good as spin to win, especially against a lot of stronger enemies. So Mega is a samurai as well. Only samurai can use the katana except for sword masters. When I'm playing a normal run and I create 5 characters to fill out all 5 possible slots, all the rest are sword masters with the katana because it's so powerful even at low level. I don't have to worry about levels or anything else. But so now, she is attacking, Partha's attacking this stronghold, and she will take it right after these two enter. So I will fight all 3 enemies at once. That's one of the speed things I do. And meanwhile, I didn't have to give a new order to Aeneas because he didn't get involved in the fight, so he continued on to attack this place, just as I had commanded him to previously. Now, because he is the technically first in line, he is actually the one who's going to fight in this... battle here. That is unfortunate, but there's nothing I can do about it. Mega would make this battle go a lot faster, but it's the programming of the turn order. That was a good hit, though. When I can get that off, it's pretty effective. There's a couple of things that are okay with the lance. It's one of the slightly better styles. One of the reasons why I hate New Game Plus is you don't have much access to Soul of Xianghua until near the end, and almost no katanas except for Megas as well. And you spend a lot more time with your dancer dying before she gets up to level 30 and can use the Soul of Xianghua. And all of the other styles you could use pale in comparison to the speed that the katana and the Soul of Xianghua melts through these enemies. Barbarians with Iron Sword or other classes that are more powerful that can use Iron Sword do okay with a couple of attacks, one in particular, but it's still not nearly just as reliable as that. And even staff users, again, they're just a couple that have a few moves that are pretty abusive. And I'm not sure why it is, but they're in this game more than pretty much any other Soul Calibur that I've played, and I played all of them, have just certain movesets, have certain attacks, like Xianghua's Spin to Win here, as I call it, that they just don't know how to properly block. They just are unable to. And it might be simply an overload from the number of styles that are available, and that might be the reason why they didn't go to that many, extra cheap styles in the previous game, in the following games, 4, 5, and 6. That's all speculation on my part. I don't know for certain, but it does seem to make sense, because there's got to be a reason why Soul Calibur 3 has AI holes that no other Soul Calibur does, and the most likely thing to me is just the sheer number of 40 plus styles. That's 40 you can create, and then you've still got Abyss. You've got technically Night Terror, neither of which you can get in Chronicles of the Sword or in any way see them either as an opponent or anything else. They are not characters that you will ever fight. Now, most AI, especially defensive style ones that just mostly defend their strongholds, like this guy, they are programmed to retreat back to defend the main stronghold when it comes under attack, so he is going to be doing that. Now, I hope I've given these characters the orders to march all the way to the end. If I didn't, I'll have to reorder them, and that'll waste a bit of time. But coming out of there, I can do that. Are they? Good. I did. One of the things that I do not that well with comparatively is always giving the correct amount of orders, because pretty much any time you go too far past an area where you know you're going to stop is a waste of time. If you ever not go far enough, it's a waste of time. And most of the time it's pretty easy to remember, but there are a few times where I struggle a bit with it. So we've graduated after Fing Gerardo. This is our first post here, story-wise. We are guarding a border station near the Kingdom of Dalkia, and in the middle of the night we're attacked by bandits. But there's something interesting about these bandits, as this little encounter here ends up leading into the upcoming war that involves most of the rest of the story. Because this mysterious leader of the bandits, Mr. has a couple of units dressed as Grandal soldiers. And they are being very vicious today. And this is the kind of randomness that happens. This is the randomness you'll get in pretty much any fighting game, which is one of the things that makes them a little bit rough as speedruns, is that it's not RNG in the normal sense, like you're waiting for certain amounts of crits or misses. It's just the decisions of the AI are somewhat random. They're programmed to respond to certain instances, but which steps they choose to make can't be perfectly predicted and re-emulated. As I've seen people do in certain speedruns like Kingdom Hearts. I watched many Kingdom Hearts runs in the marathons where the couch is explaining the principles behind the battles and how they're carefully manipulating the enemy AI and doing so many attacks not to trigger something. I've never seen any speedrun or fighting game figure anything like that out pretty much for any of these guys. It's just largely find the ability that's hardest for the AI to deal with and just spam that and pray that they don't use advanced techniques and aggressive things to break through. That's pretty much what it boils down to, and this is no exception. So anyway, these bandits dressed as Grandal soldiers flee the scene, and then the next day Dalkia declares war on us, claiming that they're retaliating for us attacking them first. And we remember these Grandal bandits and think, it seems like somebody's manipulating this war. So our next battle is with Dalkia attacking us. We have to defend ourselves against Dalkia. And one of their forward commanders, Luna, who's our primary rival throughout the first part of the game. Unit type back to bandit. No. Sortie settings, sortie settings, sortie. Okay. So once again, this is a... that's about right. I can't remember if these guys will defend or not. This is a semi-new strat. Fortifying, of course, increases its hit points, and so sometimes during the game I'll do this in order to keep enemies that are attacking my fortress occupied, so that they will have less chance to attack me. And I hope that I gave enough of a barrier here for the follow-up. Yeah, I should have. Shouldn't be any problem. Because Luna charges immediately towards our commander, so I am going to have to deal with her. But I should only have 3 battles, maybe 4, over the course of this. If I play my cards correctly. This is a semi-risky strat, because if I don't manipulate things properly, if I make a slip up and forget to do something, I can lose a lot of time. I just really love the dialogue too of the created characters and things that they say. You can manipulate their voices really well in this game. Soulcalibur 6 finally gave us a much better selection of voices, but while they're technically less in Soulcalibur 3 compared to 4 and 5, they each had 6 voice lines per gender, while there are only 4 here, 4 different voices. And one of them is like old man, old woman, 4 per gender. The thing that makes it a lot more varied in your character's actual speeches is that your clothing creates a kind of alignment system, that you have 4 different alignments that determine whether your character is a reserved good person, an energetic person, a cold and ruthless killer, or a excitable assassin. but that gives 4, even though it's the same voice saying all 4 lines, they're varied expressions make them a lot more interesting and varied compared to Windsor. There we go. Once you've got the combo on, that's what makes Spin to Win so strong, is once you've got the combo on, it's almost impossible for them to break out of it. They just aren't programmed to. But the danger and why Dancer is not all dominating in Soulcalibur 3, why I can't make a party of Dancers, is because if they do decide to be aggressive before I can set up the combo, they will take a lot of damage and die fast. Alrighty. Now, is anyone going to retreat yet? No, they're going to wait until I take that stronghold, and that's good. So this should work out pretty well. That might not have helped at all, actually, depending on if they just stay in that fortress or not, which I think they are immediately turning around. So maybe this was the better path. We'll see. I made a lot of adjustments to this. Now I need to fortify. Once again, to increase the amount of time that they're going to be busy dealing with it. Oh, good. They're taking a major roundabout way now. That's definitely going to give me some more time. So they're all trying to fall back to defend now that I'm attacking the main stronghold, but I may have to try a trick here to guarantee that they won't get in. Or I might not. That one little thing may have helped out a bunch. For safety. Okay. Now, because my character is through, is sitting here, they can't get through, so he's going to try and take that stronghold, and they're just going to have to sit there while I do it. They might not have made it all the way through to attack me, but if they did, then I would have lost a lot of time from having to fight all of those battles. So this character is unique in the fact that he is one of 2 characters in the game who is, for some strange reason, extremely tall. Just, he is enormous. And otherwise, he's got all the same equipment style things that you could put on a character of your own if you wanted to create him. But just for whatever reason, he's one of 2 that is a giant. So that's kind of interesting. He's pretty wimpy, though, most of the time. Yeah, the interesting thing about this is because of the fighting game aspect, and I'm fighting well over probably about 200 battles over the course of the Chronicle. That's 200 opportunities for RNG to go completely crazy and for one of them to aggressively attack me. So I will die multiple times over the course of this run. Yeah, saved a minute there. The last time I did this was over a year ago, and I was still using older strats in single player. And there I finally perfected something that I've been working on in any percent for quite a little while. Okay, now I get Abilia, but Eurydice is the one I want. Abilia isn't that great, so I'm not going to bring her. Mega is the one I want, and then Eurydice. I need to equip her with... I'll go ahead and equip her with Soul Edge, because it's powerful. I might not do much with her, we will see. Whoops. NAS. Okay. Which... I need only one character over there. Let's have Mega do most of the fighting there, and everybody else stay here. Do this properly. Alright, now, in this mission, there usually are not... This is our first introduction to a brand new loss condition. Usually, you lose if you lose all of your characters. If you lose some, they will actually go back and regenerate for a while, which is how it balances out us having only a maximum of 5, even at our biggest 4 in this battle, for instance. And while they have like 8, 10, 20 more guys, your guys will regenerate at the nearest level 3 or higher stronghold, so sometimes I will build up a stronghold in order to get a closer place to regenerate to if I lose. And you will lose, but if all of your characters are defeated at once, you will lose the Chronicle, and if your main stronghold is ever taken, you will always lose the Chronicle. This one has another loss condition. If I happen to lose both sides of this bridge, or if I let these guys come in and take it, I will end up losing the Chronicle as well. So I have to have a character here to deal with them. So Mega, do this for us. Boom. I can do a little bit more damage juggle. There's generally two things that I'll do with this charge. This ended up not being necessary, the spin kick, but the spin kick comes out quick, does decent damage, and it forces them towards the edge of the ring usually, which makes it a little bit easier to do a ring out. But by doing a few sweeping vertical strikes, I can instead add more combo damage. So depending on the terrain and how much I can make use of it, determines whether one is better than the other. In this case, it's probably better. Nice guard impact. One of the hardest things to do, and the AI just does it, even at this low level. The AI does get progressively harder as the game goes on, which is one of the things that, again, makes all dancers not very legit. Not that I could do it in this category anyway. Since this is MCO, I only make a single character of my own and then have to rely on what's given to me, which does add a little bit more strategy to which characters I take and trying to learn more styles. It mostly changes strategy in the much later games, so I have to balance between having beefy characters and then having characters that can actually do something in combat when I need them to. So Rowan, funny guy here, goes back and forth. Now, last mission, we do have ones like Ivy here, the level 60 Soulcalibur characters, super bosses. Again, for the most part, I'll be avoiding them during the course of the run because they're usually out of the way. They're not necessary for any of the missions ever. They're just there for a lot of experience if you want them. There's one mission where the fastest path is actually along a side route through them because there are far less buildings to destroy that way and far fewer enemies to take out, but otherwise we just aren't going to be messing with them at all. It's just not worth the time. But they're there. I do have a category called SC% where it's kind of like an all bosses category, basically minus one other super boss, but I have to fight them all. I might make an all bosses sometime. There are so many different ways that you can, just simple ways you can make a lot of meme categories. Sadly, I'm the only runner. I ought to try and make a few things so that other people can join me, but it's definitely a difficult thing. Among other things, since I insist on my normal speedrun having everything unlocked, which I've done many times over and then deleted my files and redone it again because I've enjoyed playing Soulcalibur 3 and especially this mode so much over the years. But anybody else who had problems with save data file being deleted, something I've heard about, or you know, just not putting in the effort I have to unlocking all classes and weapons, it's definitely a bit of a trickier proposition. You'd have to put in those couple hundred hours usually, or at least nearly 100 hours of effort first before you can even start speedrunning the game, which is why I have started looking into doing FF, or fresh file runs as I call them, which would be standard starting without any save data. When I first started this, I thought it'd be a lot trickier because theoretically you have to delete the data from your memory card in order to do it, and then do it every single time. But if you actually can play without a memory card, and it would do the same thing. The falchion here, Chinese sword as they call it as a weapon style, is one of my favorites and one of the worst to fight against. They tend to be very aggressive and with lots of quick attacks that will stop me before my combo comes out. Unfortunately, even though I like it a whole lot to play, I think it's really fun to play, it is not very effective for speedrunning because it doesn't have any really abusable moves that I can use. Alright, now this one is the only map in the game where the boss is not defending his stronghold. That's him, Rowan, there instead. And so on most other categories I would end up fighting him anyway, but not here. I have pulled one guy off by attacking that side of the bridge, which is the whole reason I did it, but otherwise these four guys are all going to come in here to defend this. But playing casually, I never fought anybody in this stronghold because I spread out and I always wanted to take every stronghold and fight everybody, and they will only retreat back here if I start taking it first. But I had more people there on that side to take care of it and all that, so it's just, this was empty and everyone was defeated and all I had left to do was to take the stronghold. But they just barely make it in. It's so sad.
Decisive battle.
over there on the far right, the other guy inside of that building I'm not attacking is Cervantes. Some of the Chronicles have 2 Soulcalibur characters. The previous one, Chronicle 4, had the first, Astaroth. That is where SC percent would vary from any percent if I were doing it. It might or might not be worth it to try an SC percent MCO sometime if I continue working on this category like I've been doing. If I do fresh file, it might actually be worth it to go ahead and do the... How crazy. Aggressively does a lot of damage. I'm 9th and that's 5, and that's how much damage she did to me with 2 attacks, even though I have a powerful Soulcalibur weapon as well. That's how weak Dancers are compared to, like, Knights and Barbarians, even. Barbarians are pretty weak as well, but not nearly so as Dancers, and Thieves are the only other class that compares in overall weakness. Ninja are relatively weak, but they have decent attack and speed, better than Thief and Dancer, and that's the same for Dancers. A lot of classes, speed and attack are more the focus. They're more offensive than defensive classes, which is one of the reasons why Dancers and Thieves are so bad, because they are the worst of those aggressive classes. The only one that's theoretically worse is Sage, because they're the weakest offense, and offense is the most important stat. So Sages I'd never do well with, but if they were just beating on each other, a Sage would probably still do better than a... Or not Sage, a Saint. That's what they're called. Sages are actually a higher level class, and from the Saint line, so they are focused more on defense and hit points than on attack power, but they're such a high level class that they're still decent in all their stats. That went a little bit slow, probably because of the couple of the fights I took. Chronicle 6 is the return of Luna. We fight her a total of 4 times. We fought her alone the first time, but every time afterwards we're going to be fighting her Klesser Pemdo, as it says here. So the Klesser Pemdo are her bodyguards, slash elite guard, whatever. They don't really give a title to them, but they're basically her 4 sub-commanders. And they are each associated with an element. Now, this isn't enough of a role-playing game to actually have elemental properties, but they do what they can to try to implement them into the theory behind the Klesser Pemdo. 2 of these missions, they'll be defending towers as they are here, or strongholds. And they're both the map background, the battle background of fights in that stronghold, plus the properties of the stronghold, the missions, which we're really going to see in effect for the first time here, are there to accentuate the elemental factor of the characters. So the first one we're going to be fighting is Loopy, who's the Flames of Hell, and so she has lightning around her blade as an all-guard break effect. The all-guard break mission applies the guard break effect, which usually has lightning in all the Soulcalibur games. That's how it's shown. Similar to my attack here, it's a guard break attack. So even if they do manage to block it, they'll be block stunned. And that's the effect of guard break. So all of her attacks have that, and it shows her weapon being wreathed in lightning. It's a fire element because the upgraded version of that is all unblockable, which we will see on her weapon in the next time we fight her, because her stronghold has been upgraded. And in that case, when you see an attack with flames around it, that means it's an unblockable attack. So they embrace that in the showing off the elemental portion of Loopy. Now, the 2 ones we don't want are Quake, which is of Earth, Agi, and Healdo's Ice. Ice is one of the very worst missions in the game because it applies ice physics to the ring, which is really great in a fighting game that gives ring outs. Now, ring outs in normal Soulcalibur, pretty much every Soulcalibur mode, with the exception of like certain characters, say Night Terror in this game, if you fight the super boss Night Terror, he's immune to knockouts, but most of the time any other character gets hit by a ring out, he's immune to a ring out, not knockout. A ring out, if they get hit by ring out, they are instantly defeated. Now, for some reason, Chronicles of the Sword, they decided not to make that that easy, but you do lose half your maximum life. So if you go out, boom. So if you're at half life or less, it does count as an automatic victory. But if you have more than that, you will survive, but with your HP greatly reduced. So it's still pretty effective. I do like the effect overall because while it does make some of the fights a little bit tougher than they would be if I get a ring out above health, it doesn't happen that often comparatively to how much time it would have saved me versus how much time I would lose if I lost to an unlucky ring out. And when usually, even after a ring out, I can usually recover and defeat the enemy anyway, so it doesn't hurt me as much as an instant ring out victory would help in actuality. So here's the only other one we're going to be fighting in her terrain, which is Elua. She is of the wind, and so she has whirlwind effect, which visibly blows your character around in a circle. Now, most of these missions, I haven't mentioned yet that on low-level strongholds, level 1 and sometimes level 2, depending on the stronghold, there's no real rhyme or reason to it. The wind actually made me fall short there. It's pushed me away, and... oh, that's bad. You can see how much I'm getting pushed, even on a little whirlwind like this. This is a moderately small... I am not quite pushing my things right, but I'm getting Soul Charge enhanced attacks, which is kind of okay. Okay. Elua usually isn't too hard, but she moved just enough with the help of the wind that it made things get rough. So Whirlwind can be kind of annoying. I say that fight usually isn't bad, and Elua's a really weak character, but I had a rough fight there. But I have lost there before, too, so you can lose almost anywhere, anytime, if the AI decides to attack you. Now, the mission is actually to defeat all 4 of the Cluster Pendo, and I'm not bothering with the other 2 strongholds because even though they are defending their stronghold, they are programmed with normal defensive mindset, so they will retreat out of their stronghold to defend the main one when it comes under attack. So I don't have to fight in Quake, and I don't have to fight in Ice yet. We will be fighting both of those later on. Lizard Man is the Soulcalibur character here, chilling in the middle, worth more than 1,000 experience if you wanted to go and take him out. It'll get a level 1 character up to level 4. It's a huge amount of experience. But first we'll be fighting Luna inside hers, with she has Cure. You'll see the little glowy effect, and it's pretty basic. You restore health over time.
So we meet again. Now.
One of the interesting things about Luna is that she's programmed to hate your main character. And it's kind of interesting. She's only partially programmed to recognize that certain characters are not the main character. Like, no matter who actually defeats her in combat, she decides that you, your main character, Partha in this case, is her eternal rival. Even if you only fight her with your other characters. At one point, she may... depending on how you play the game, they may give a dialogue box where she'll say to your character, "Out of my way, you're not the one I want," even if it is the character who's defeated her twice previously. See, and there's the effect of having so many hit points that... That was mid. Whew, that was dangerous. I could end up losing to Hildo here. Hildo's usually pretty weak, but again, she might get super aggressive seeing how low my health is. I might do a semi-defensive strat here. Yeah, perfect. Sometimes by backing up, I can bait them into just running forward and getting in range before they have a chance to attack. I don't use that often enough because I hate being defensive at all, but it's actually a really good strat I ought to rely on more. And that was really funny, the effects of the early 3D from games like this. Her ponytail flops through her chest. Oops, ignore that. This is just PS2 level graphics. I would love to see an HD remake of this game, by the way. An HD remaster, similar to some of the others have had done. It really needs it, too, because there was a error in the game that would happen when you saved... when you tried to, like, delete the data... all data that came after it could end up getting deleted, or if you tried to adjust data that was added to your memory card after this game was installed, its save data was installed, rather, on that memory card, things would be lost. I'll get back to that in a minute. First, I have to talk about Gerardo. Gerardo's with us now, hooray. I'm taking too much time to decide. I did. Equip him with Dreadnought. Okay, now I can sortie. Alright, so General Gerardo joins us here. You might notice we're suddenly facing teal instead of yellow. Yellow was Dalkia. Each of the kingdoms has their own color, which is kind of a neat effect in the game. Makes it easier to tell who your enemies are. And this is the only time we'll be fighting teal in the game because, well, you'll see. Spoilers for the story, which we'll get at the end of this chronicle. But the Maltese Republic has declared war on us, hoping probably to take advantage of the fact that we've been busy fighting Dalkia. They're going to probably now try to take out both their weakened rivals, or at least one of them. Since we seem to be winning, I guess we're the better target. Doesn't make much sense, but whatever. So, Abilia is left in charge. She joined us back on the bridge, so she was there the last 2 Chronicles, and we just but we left her in charge on order from the Emperor, and the rest of our tired troops have been sent forward to deal with Dalkia, or to deal with Maltese, and they think it's a real bummer, but General Gerardo appears, and he's like, oh yeah, you guys seem to be in trouble. Let me give you a hand. And so he puts himself into our charge as a unit. Now, he's supposed to be General Gerardo, the commander of the entire Grandal forces, the Supreme General Marshal Commander, whatever. And he's put himself in charge of a young captain who just barely graduated from the school. Okay. Glad that the chain of command in Grandal is so free to, mess with as you like. Whatever. He comes in at level 15, so in this mode, he's actually relatively strong. Hopefully, I won't ever have to use him, because he still won't be as fast as my Katana and Swordsman, but he's a pretty decent safety valve. He at least has a decent amount of hit points and can do a decent amount of damage if I need him to. But so anyway, because of this error, this bug that was in the game of corrupting memory cards if you messed around with them after you installed Soulcalibur III save data, a lot of people were not able to get their full enjoyment out of the game because they ended up losing it. It never affected me, but I've had multiple people tell me about this after I started streaming and they were watching me. Now, if I sit and let them, again, I need to start these battles as soon as possible, because if I just sit and leave them there fighting, my bandits will get utterly destroyed by them, no matter what levels they are, what other type they are, because the enemy has no bandits. They don't want you ever taking advantage of their ability to thing. It's the one class that is exclusive to your army, of being able to change your units into bandits. So, kind of an interesting thing. It makes me wonder why they included them, but they're really useful for my speedrun. And even for my casual play, I generally relied on bandits. I'm already up to 37 victories, no losses. This is one of the maps where I am not surprised to get my first loss. Like, it isn't even really bad luck. It's just the nature of the fact that that ice I mentioned, we'll be dealing with it soon. Okay, need to fortify this up. So the main enemy stronghold is a straight charge ahead, but the enemies are programmed mostly, instead of attacking my strongholds, to try to attack my units. So I am going to try to avoid them as much as possible by popping through the first couple that were there and then building this up so that they will not be able to get to me before going through these things. It creates a little bit of an amusing effect, I think, as they come charging in, and then most of them, a few of them may give up. I'm not sure what triggers the AI in some of their ways, but most of them will come charging after me, but they're never going to catch me before I get to the end. It's like a Benny Hill, little Benny Hill movie. But with save data getting corrupted and lost a lot, it makes it a lot harder for anybody else to jump into this speedrun, even if they wanted to, because the number of people like me who have it fully unlocked and have never lost it or had a problem with it are very few and far between. Unless you're like using an emulator and like find a place where you can download fully unlocked save data or such things. If the game were made into a remaster, it'd probably be a lot easier to implement. Yep, ice. I would have gotten him if not for the ice. Of course, that missed because of the ice. Yep, there we go. Now, if it goes well, if I get my combo started, usually I'll manage, the tracking is good enough that I'll stick with them over the course of the ice. And I'll be able to finish them off as normal, but getting that first hit in on the ice is really tough. It also makes the charge a little bit difficult a lot of the time. Luckily, these guys' AI is usually pretty bad, so it isn't too rough, but the shoulder charge is really hard to work on ice as well because of just how you slide around and you get in danger of blowing off. See, my jump kick totally whipped there. I shouldn't have done that, but I did anyway. Yeah, this is an especially bad place to, especially bad category to lose my main character because my backups are not great. Mega in most fights is fantastic, he'll do fine, but it's a lot taller order against... Please. Darn. Too late. Okay, that's slightly unfortunate. I probably will still be fine, probably. But now there's a much bigger chance of them catching up. If I can get into that stronghold before she reaches it and starts attacking, you can't fortify after when it's under attack, so I can't... I can neither fortify that up to prevent them from getting to me, nor can I fortify it up so that my character will respawn there. And so that's a bit of a bummer, and I could potentially... It's really impossible to lose the run, because you can actually just restart a Chronicle if you lose it. And you get to keep your experience you got, so progressively it will get slightly easier, but... But I'm going to end up losing a lot of time if, say, I'm defeated here, which isn't likely. In general, the samurai, compared to the dancer, has a lower ceiling of being able to finish a fight quickly, but he also has a lot lower floor of chance to lose and such. You can see how much this death cost me, though it's quickly becoming a minute. So Mooncalf here is, we fought the commander in the last map, and the last stronghold, and he claimed he retreated and was like, darn you, Grandal. But then the text that I was just skipping through suggested that Mooncalf suddenly appeared and offed him, off camera. And she tells us that the country needs to be destroyed, but she isn't going to allow us to be the ones to do it, and promptly attacks us. And this is, again, the only time we fight Altice, because coming into the next Chronicle, it seems that suddenly Maletta, who we've never heard of, but is apparently a province within Haltese, has suddenly rebelled, declared itself its own kingdom, and claimed the Haltese Republic of its entirety as its kingdom, and now is attacking and wiping them out while their forces are busy dealing with us. And so now, all of a sudden, they're all getting wiped out, and we could just retreat and say none of our business, but our wonderful commander gets no choice in her morality. She decides that she isn't going to allow this to happen, so she's going to rescue the Haltese. So there are 5 Haltese soldiers here, but they are actually allies who don't move. The Green will come and attack them and try and kill them, and we have to rescue them. Now, we are allowed to lose 2 of them, which I believe we do in the speedrun, if everything works out as I kind of recall it doing. But we can't lose any more than that, so let's see, I'm trying to remember. Actually, is it faster this way? I can't recall. Yeah, I think it is. It's a lot of fighting in any case, but been a little bit since I've tried this, so I can't remember it as well as I'd like. Okay, so this is a kind of a tricky one because of the AI. I always was worried that I needed to save all the Haltis, and I always tried. And this is actually where I first discovered how good bandits were, because before I just relied on generic infantry. They were good enough until I got to here and I couldn't take all the strongholds and defeat all the enemies in time to save the 5 Halti soldiers. I always lost 1 or 2, and it frustrated me. Until one time I decided to try using bandits because they were supposed to move faster, and holy cow did they do it all so much faster. What? I thought I equipped Dreadnought on you. I guess I didn't save it. That's bad. That's going to make this a little harder. Ouch. This is getting especially bad. Ooh! Yikes. So yeah, so much for Gerardo. If I'd had Dreadnought, I would have killed him by now because of the superior damage and damage blocking that it deals. So losing Gerardo there is a little bit troublesome. I normally don't lose anybody here because none of my characters are weak enough to lose to a character like this. I was certain I equipped Dreadnought on him. Since I didn't, oh well. That's going to make this slightly more interesting. But anyway, I learned when speedrunning that I don't have to worry too much about my characters not running into people, though, because as it turns out, they are not programmed to go after the enemy. They actually get to the Eerie dice, use Soul Edge. Soul Edge is pretty much the exact same as Mirasame. What their properties are, weapons don't actually have attack powers, they just have properties, some of which are varying degrees of attack power increase. But in the case of both Soul Edge and Mirasame, they have a negative factor of reducing your health over time. However, they have a powerful vampiric quality the other way, draining life from enemies that you hit, a very large amount of it. And I have to wait until, even though there are pixels that people are moving between, the movement seems free-flowing. They actually are moving within squares on the map, as it were. And so those squares, once they've entered a square, if another person is entering into the next square, they have to stop and wait for them. They can't enter in if it's an enemy, which is what happened there, basically. And you can't start the battle until both units are in the square, and then they will start swinging at each other. By the same token, once an enemy starts attacking a stronghold, they don't count as actually participating in the battle until their weapon has swung and connected with the stronghold for the first time. So when I'm defending a stronghold and trying to fight multiples at once, I have to do that at just the right moment. Okay, now I wonder how much time I wasted, but I needed to get this done so that Gerardo will join closer. Oh, good. In fact, maybe I should have waited on that next guy, actually. It might have been faster, because now I'm going to have to load up a second fight. Oh, well. Oh, nice bomb to start with. So, one of the more interesting and favorite people I've talked to playing casually love the dagger. And it's pretty useful. It's easy to access early on from a thief or a saint. Unfortunately, that's about it. The sword masters could eventually use it. But it's pretty reliable for casual play, for when you have lots of time to retry and everything. You'll eventually win by throwing bombs at the enemy. A lot better than the dancer's tambourine. Okay, now you can see Gerardo's bar. He's almost ready to respawn, so he should respawn there. Okay, when did you not have Dreadnought equipped? Okay, now you have Dreadnought equipped, as is proper. Oh. This is actually the first time I've used this strategy, and now that I'm looking at it, I probably ought to adjust it some. I mean, this is my standard strategy for regular any percent, but I've never used it with MCO, and I've always had my katana-wielding swordmasters. Oh god, Mega's gonna die here, seriously. Luckily, you get a life drain back from the katana, and then he's done. And swordmasters between levels 1 and 8, generally with katana, have no problem dealing with these guys in the way. But not only is just the Dancer capable of working so much faster in this situation, she also is the only one whose experience matters, because all of these characters will be removed from my party, and the ones that I get back again, some of them I'll get back, some of them I won't, but the ones I get back will actually have their levels set to a determined amount the first time you play through the game, and so leveling them up doesn't actually mean anything in the long run of the game, while all the experience I get for my Dancer leader helps out. So I'd really prefer for her to have more combats, but again, in the normal any percent, I don't need to boost that at all, really. In the normal any percent, I'd have plenty of swordmasters there to battle through these guys, and that's perfectly fine. I kept my main character way back to begin with in order to lure essentially this guy away mostly, so that I wouldn't have to fight against her, him, yep, Ilyusha. Otherwise, that's one more fight I have to do, and it actually takes even more time. Losing Gerardo has already cost me another minute. I ended up having really terrible splits later on in these Chronicles thanks to the thing, but I did fine up to here. The old strat I used was a lot more reliable and easier because my Sword Dancer was in the way, and I had better luck on the ice my initial time. I've only run this actual one. Here's Mooncalf 2. Now I've got her, though. Mostly, yes, she has a sliver of health left thanks to the cure effect and her high defense as a sage. Interestingly, that weapon, the Chinese Blade, is based on Xianghua's weapon, but even though the Dancer uses the Xianghua Chinese Blade style, the only class that actually uses the Create-a-Soul version of the Chinese Blade is the Sage. So, one of the weird choices in their decision to assign classes to the various Soulcalibur characters in this game. So now it's going to be Heil 1. Heil, we fight 3 maps in a row, and he gets progressively more annoying each time with a progressively worse mission. He's going to start with all guard break, which generally isn't bad. Heil is always a high stat character, so it's always, he can be very punishing. He tends to not be super awful most of the time, except for his final fight, but there are times when he can get really aggressive, and when he starts attacking, he generally combos really hard off of the stun hits he does. He uses a lot of attacks that have strong counter stuns.
Decisive battle. Battle 1. Fight.
Okay, I've got it. You should really give up. 39-1. Only 2 losses thus far, but even so, that's I was perfect up to this point previously. I must have been. Again, been over a year since I've actually run this category, and been several months since I've run Chronicles of the Sword at all, since I was working so hard on my gold box runs for RPG Limit Break. And since I was doing gold box runs, I was also I was practicing that leading up to RPG Limit Break, and also working on Secret of the Silver Blades, for instance, at the same time. You know, just wanting to learn the next step in that. I loaded that a lot slower than I needed to. I'm semi-distracted. Which happens. Alright, here's the fun one. We first get our 5 people. Let's see, Mega, Eurydice, and I guess Aeneas, yeah. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and have Mega down here. I'm going to go ahead and have Eurydice be 1 and everybody else be a 2. Having to carefully choose who I want to fight the specific battles here. Normally I'd have 1 going down south for a couple. This is an opportunity to let my sword masters level up quite a bit. But in this instance, no, you need to go this way. And you are going to fight all those guys. Alright.
Final battle, fight.
Now this attack is another one that's really hard for the enemy to block. They go into a crouch stun if they take the first hit. Now you can
Take care of yourself.
block the second attack as well normally if you're human, but it throws the AI off, and so they never tend to block the second strike. They're just unable to. So it's a pretty reliable. It's easy to sidestep though if the AI decides to do that. So that's why it's not quite as good as the katana, but it's probably the 3rd best weapon and attack in the game. And Soul Edge again with the super power. It gives a lot of attack power and gives life drain. You saw how much Mega was recovering in the last one, even though it looked like he was close to death. As long as I can start hitting the enemy and getting life back, it goes really fast. So, now, you may notice that we have 2 colors here. We have both green and yellow. And so, as we've advanced on Meletta, they have decided to ally with Dalkia, so we've got Dalkian forces here as well that have been sent. And of course, the person leading the reinforcement charge is our bitter enemy in the Dalkia forces, our wonderful friend Luna, and her Klesser Pemdo. Wonderful. So, now if you've been paying attention to the story, Abilia was supposed to be finishing off Dalkia. We beat them like 3 maps in a row, quite handily. We were advancing into their territory, so it was like Abilia just had mop-up duty. She was going to get all the glory, our characters thought. People like Reese and Eurydice were saying, while we were left to clean up the mess of Halties. But now, if suddenly they have the, leisure to send some of their forces here to help out Meletta against us, then obviously Abilia is sleeping on the job and not doing too hot. They're letting them go. And yes, now I'm currently watching another speedrun while I'm busy doing my own. This is a lot of experience for my main character, and again, usually I give this to my sword masters, but since only my main character's experience will carry on after Act 12, I want to give her as much of the experience as I can, plus it makes the battles a little bit faster. Then that's good, since I have plenty of time to catch up on. This is, and one of the reasons I had to spread my characters out for this map is because this is another route mission. I have to defeat all the enemies, and so that was perfect.
It looks like I won today, but who knows what'll happen next time?
Always, But so I have to spread my characters out so that I can try and take out all the enemy in the least amount of time. Eventually, they will all make it back to the stronghold, but in order to fight the, minimum number of times, as it were, I have to do certain things to try and manipulate their AI. It gets trickier in some instances. Alright, so again, this is the first time you get a 5th character so in the battle, so normally this would be a level 1 Swordmaster, and this fight in particular would be for them to get a little bit of bonus experience. It's the only other major fight that's going to be going on here, so I went ahead and sent Mega here to clean up all of these enemies. Because again, it doesn't matter how much experience they get, but Mega will take care of them the fastest out of my remaining characters. But these characters are not as intimidating as Luna and her forces are. They don't give as much experience, so this is where the big experience boost is.
Battle 3. Fight. Battle 4. Fight.
I really like the characters in the setup, how there are a number of named ones who have their own unique uniforms and really get to, just show off the creative chops of what you can do with the character generator, while also having a lot of generic characters who, are just the Grandal, Dalkia, in other words, Grandal or Dalkian soldier. They're very generic. They have a set uniform and stuff, which is semi-more realistic. Just gives a nice overall flavor. I would love to see a brand new, updated, standalone game of Chronicles of the Sword. More than anything else, that is the game that I would love and cherish and play the heck out of the most. Something similar to this, a few upgraded rules. And I mean, if you dedicated a game just to this, you could have a lot more interesting dialogue with named characters and brand new cutscenes and all sorts of similar things. Okay, so he doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't have to do anything either. Usually I have an enemy that... Oh, this is actually... Looks like this might be a strat to improve for later. Because normally, a lot of the other characters spread out in their attempts. I have one more down here. I have another up there. But having my main character come up here seems to have drawn in a lot more of the enemies right where I want them. Wow, this is really incredible. Now, as much as I spread that experience out, changing it this way, this is a big find, even for any percent. I need to keep my character up there because that's a big deal. That's actually a real big deal. I have a lot of enemies to fight here, but this might be a minute faster than my previous one, and that was one of my very best at 12 minute 8 second. I don't know how I did that well. Some of these splits, I'm wondering how on earth I did so well when I don't have anybody who's very good, except for, Partha. You've seen how some of these other fights have gone. Chronicle 15 was where I lost a huge amount of time before. We'll see if I can make up some of that. Even though I'm 5 minutes behind here, if I have a much better Chronicle 15, I can make up just about all that time. This might be sub 10. Wow. I have only 2 more enemies to fight. They're pretty weak. Well, Heil could give me trouble. We'll see. All unblockable, by the way. As I say, each Heil fight is worse than the rest. He was upgraded from all guard break to all unblockable, which isn't as bad as an effect as you might think it would be. If you're a more defensive type player, then it would certainly be pretty rough, but since I'm all-out aggression anyway, the fact that I can't block is minor. Also, they tend to be kind and make the AI slightly less aggressive on all unblockable because they know that if the AI is, I believe, this is my belief, I don't know this for certain, but it makes sense to me, if an enemy were totally aggressive with all unblockable on, they'd be pretty much unstoppable. You'd have to be able to very carefully dodge their attacks and then counterattack before they came back, because once they start hitting you, they can just keep hitting you and comboing you. You can't block it. Blocking is the normal way to you know, get an advantage over somebody in most fighting games, especially a Soul Calibur game. All the hit frame stuff and everything with that makes a big deal. When you can't block at all, that makes it really, really hard. Okay, yeah, wow. 2 minutes. Best segment there. That's incredible. I did 12 minutes here. That's also another really good one. Of course, pretty much the only person doing the fighting here is going to be Partha again, so... I need to go back, though. And undo recent... Here it is again. Okay, 5, 5, 5, 5. Lost a bit of time there. It has been such a long time since I've not just had my 5. Whenever you create characters, they go to the top of the list, which makes it really convenient. I just make my 5 characters and then I just add them all in order. But I can't do that with this particular group. Now it's time to see if RNG is in my favor. I have, for the most part, everything that the AI does is predetermined by your actions or just what they've been programmed to do. But some of these characters have different actions based on the exact movements of certain of your characters. And I'm not always sure exactly what it would be. It would take some tassing to figure out the data sets behind them and everything. So you've got Oryx here on the left and Anareta is here on the right. And now they could both decide to charge past my characters and try and take my stronghold, which is what I want. It means I won't have to fight them at all. They could decide to both retreat back into this fortress here to help Heil out, which would be bad. Or one of them, usually Anareta, will retreat and Oryx will decide to charge forward. That's the most common occurrence. But based on the position of my characters will determine what they decide to do. And it looks like it's going to be standard. Anareta is going to retreat and Oryx is moving forward. So that's fine, that's usual. If I could know exactly how my characters are going to go or how I could order them that would make them go into the proper setup, I could manipulate this a little bit better, but I can't. So I think it might be, among other things, just be determined by the order I set them to spot 5 as they assemble. You can have up to 5 friendly units in a single square, as it were, which is why they give you 5 characters maximum. You may have seen at points that the enemy couldn't add more than 5 units to a stronghold, for instance, because that's a single square and you can't occupy it with more than 5 characters. That happened back in Chronicles 4. Here's the King of Mileta, the guy who has claimed himself to be the King of Mileta. But as it turns out, as we learn here, the leader of the brigands back in Chronicle 3, Chester is his name, we find out, he was manipulating this old coot the whole time. And he's going to explain his plan more, but basically he was going to... he was about to start his thing and kill off Demuth and then, rule the kingdom himself. But we arrived just in time for him to decide, well, we've got to wipe out Randall first. I'll let you take care of the king for me, kind of thing. Heil did not know that his liege was being manipulated either. He's super loyal to Demuth, so... I do that charge forward attack because it's a sidestep, so against a lot of attacks that enemies will try to use to... kill me, it doesn't work. Now the problem with this stronghold is that it has an effect called offense down. You can see that I'm doing chip damage here. Offense down is, in other words, defense up. All of the enemies here have a huge boost to defense. This is one of the most powerful strongholds in the game when it comes to its mission effect. And so this is where I learned that dancers really were superior to just doing all sword masters with katana, at least for the main character, because even though this is chip damage, it's going to take a while. It's totally reliable. Once I get him in the combo, it's pretty much guaranteed for a while. While Heil has a very good AI and is very good at blocking even the shoulder charge of the Swordmaster Katana. In actuality, Soul Edge Iron Sword might be a better fit in this fight. I've never tried that, but maybe if I wanted to do a no dancer type run again, do all Sword Masters, equipping Iron Sword might be a little more reliable because the second hit of it is so much more reliable. The thing about, in some ways, the shoulder charge is not as guaranteed hit as some of the other attacks, but it's a combination of the extreme attack power of it, the high damage it does, the ability to ring out easily and or follow up with high damage combos, makes it in most circumstances the second best moveset to use after Dancer Spin to win. So now that we've taken out the king, now all of Chester's elite soldiers are coming to deal with us. So now we have to defend this place. And really, I should only be giving orders to Partha and having her defend, because that's what I need to do. So I need to wait until all 5 are in position. Now, as I said, only 5 people can occupy a square. So even though there are 8 characters coming, the back 3 will stand there and wait for this battle to finish before they can move forward and join the fight. So I have to do it here anyway. You can fight more than 5 people in a single combat if they're coming from multiple directions. We may see that during the run. It's kind of hard to know for certain, especially since it's been so long, but it happens on occasion. But in this case, since they're all coming from just a single route, I have to just take out the 5 and then move on to the next one. And spin to win. And now normally in a normal any percent speed run, I'd probably go ahead and pull my dancer back and have one of my sword masters get some experience here. Because one of the things that's guaranteed in the game is, with the exception of one fight, the highest character in your list will always be the first character in the battle when you take an enemy stronghold. So the opportunities that you have to choose your character don't come all that often. So when those chances come, I do tend to like to give the experience to some of my supplemental fighters. But up through Chronicle 12, again, since the only person who gets to keep the experience, this is bad. Oh my word. Okay, now we'll recover some health while I'm busy beating them up. Unfortunately, the offense down is not as effective for me as it is for Heil and their group. Oh, thank you. Katana is the very worst to fight against as well. They are super aggressive. Combo lot. Oh, blast. Okay, this is okay. If they go into defense like that and actually block, they almost never follow it up. They'll only block a few times, like 3 or 4 maximum, and then they'll allow me to hit them after. So even in the rare instances where they seem to be... Oh, blast. Okay. Oh, darn. Except for then. Oh, good, I'm going to be okay. Unfortunately, I might as well be dead with my low HP, but I'm going to actually have to rest and recover. Going to have to rest and recover because that is way too low health to reliably take on anyone. Probably go ahead and silence that. I can't hear it at all anyway. I don't know if it's getting into my mic or not. Oh, wait, I can recover before the second wave. Some hit points, at least. I need to remember to go to defensive for those. Is Mega inside? No. Mega, usually, if the first character dies, it instead drops to the bottom of the list and goes backwards up, usually. Not always reliable. But that tends to be the case, so actually... You're not quite ready yet? Okay, now all 3 are attacking. Again, I need to wait for all 3 to start attacking, or else I'll get in multiple fights. Again, I want to fight as many at a time as possible if I have to fight, so that it minimizes the number of these wonderful loading screens. I do love them, by the way. I just wish they were shorter. I think it's hilarious, the 2 stick figures attacking each other. Ha 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 ha!
Battle 1, fight.
Oh, thank you for the roll. Okay. And now, thanks to the life restoring effect of, oh, blast. I dropped my combo. Sometimes when they're low, a couple of quick strings. If you're playing this casually or just learning the speedrun and you aren't good at relying on these combos yet, your basic A and B strings are fantastic for making most things work, especially for really fast weapons. And Xianghua's is one of the really fastest. She's generally been a very strong character throughout the Soulcalibur series, one of the top tier usually in most of the fighting competitive instances, because of the fact that she is both very fast and has a pretty darn decent range and good damage. I mean, as fast as she is, she should not have the range or the attack power that she does, essentially. So it might have been one of the reasons why they gave her the dancer class and made her so weak otherwise. Looks like this fight is not going particularly well. I'm not surprised. 12 minutes is an insanely good time for Chronicle 10, so I might lose a little bit more time here. Alright, I probably should make Mega go next, but I'm assuming that I'm going to win the Kierke's fight too. That might be a bit dangerous. Now, Kierke's will not allow you to fight him in the field. They don't want you to cheese him by overwhelming him with ground forces, so he will automatically start combat for me. There are a few characters in the game that will do this, so I don't have to bother, which saves a very small amount of time.
Final battle, fight.
Oh, perfect. Not perfect. Oh, no. Aha, backing up strats work. I need to remember to rely on that more. I used to do that a lot early on when I started using the Dancer, and even the Swordmaster sometimes. It's good for them too. Baiting the enemy to charge forward leaves them open to getting attacked. They're not good at adjusting from running forward to immediately blocking or coming out with a fast attack, which is what we really don't want. But I kind of went away from that once I got better at the game for some reason. I'm not really sure why. I just guess I was trying so hard to get speed aggressiveness out instead, but if I get back to going defensive, I might finally be able to start getting some PBs again. It's been about a year since I've been able to get a PB in any of my Chronicles of the Sword runs. Kind of depressing. I really think that I could push regular any percent to sub 3 if everything could just break right. But the few times I was practicing it for submissions for marathons to GDQ and RPG Limit Break at the end of last year, I was doing okay, but not great. It was really frustrating. I especially thought that the SC percent, that I could really get that down, because I'd made several improvements to a couple of these things, strats, since. That's been one of the longest PB attempts away, but never could get it. So here's the final battle against Chester. Luckily, this is any percent, so I got to ignore Sung Mina. She was the Soulcalibur character on this map. She was in that stronghold off to the left, and she's on ice.
Surprised?
Which makes her the most terrifying Soulcalibur combat of any of them in the Chronicles of the Sword. So as Chester explains here, his master plan and how our meddling ruined it. Darn those kids and their little dog too.
You will pay dearly for this.
Battle 1, fight.
This is a very powerful poison. It's even outdoing the healing effect of Soulcalibur. But backup strat works. Golly, I need to remember that.
It looks like I won today.
For the last,
What'll happen next time?
like, for a solid 8 months or so of running this, I felt that if ever my health was that low, it was a guaranteed loss in the next fight, because the AI would aggressively punish me the minute I tried to start, but backing up is actually the way to go. Gotta remember that. I might have just mistimed a couple of these slightly, but when I did it before, I can't remember. It's been so long, but it seems odd that some of them were so good. Okay, Chronicle 11, a very terrible one. Oh, I have an awful PB here. That's great. This will make this relatively easy to go. We'll see how it happens. Well, I shouldn't say that because, goodness, this is one of the worst ones. Just plain and simple. Because I don't have powerful people to rely on for these fights, I may have to bite the bullet and let my dancer attempt the golly, but that's such an awful fight. So anyway, this is the final battle against Luna and her Klesser Pemdo. So they're in a line here. This is the same no matter what category you're playing. You can't do anything else but take all 5 strongholds in order. So first up is Loopy again, Cruel Sword. All of these missions are actually combinations of 2 other missions, some of which we haven't seen before. This is a combination of all unblockable and blast. Blast causes knockback to be greatly increased, which has a minor effect in this battle. You can see little sparkles coming off of us that shows we're supposed to get knocked back. It's kind of weird because only certain knockback effects actually make it happen, and the Lance doesn't actually have too many. That's the case for a couple of these. The added effect is you still almost never notice it, even after it's all done. So that was Loopy, the Flames of Hell. There's a unique weapon that they have. The very first time you play through, a lot of these characters, like Kyle, have a unique weapon that unlocks for all of your characters to use that style to use as well once you've beaten them. So they have, you won't see those on any other character here, and that includes Loopy's Blade Cleaser there. All of these characters, essentially, except for Luna herself. Which you do eventually get Luna's weapon, but not until after you win the entire Chronicles of the Sword campaign. And we'll see kind of why much later. Next up is Hildo, the Water of Origin. She's on Sacred Field, which is ice. You get to see ice again for the second time. How wonderful. Is it the last time? I think it's the last time, actually. That'd be nice. And it combines with Cure. So the Cure effect combined with the life regen that her Leviathan's wave swords, which look awesome, by the way. Not super great weapon, but they look awesome. But they give health over time as well, so she has a pretty powerful life restoring effect, which combined with the ice can make her difficult to deal with. Usually her AI isn't great, but it is ice, so if things go wrong, like they did before, things always go really wrong. Sometimes they're just frame inputs are ridiculous. Okay, now I've got her. Whew. Okay. Kind of the tussle you'd expect because, oh yeah, it kind of doesn't matter anyway, huh? So yeah, I definitely am gonna go ahead and pull her back because I need her in the final fight. Alright, so that was ice. That was not the worst fight here, unfortunately, because the actual only mission worse than ice is coming up. Not yet. Elua of Wind has Whirlwind, which is annoying, combined with Aerial Wind, an uplift effect, I tend to call it. Holy Wings is the name of the actual mission. But the Wind of Creation, Elua's Aerial Wind, causes you, when you get knocked up, to be thrown up into the sky and float like a feather for several seconds before coming down. Obviously, it's a time waster, which is annoying in a speedrun, but it's not actually that terrible of a mission in particular because you almost never will see it actually come to effect, because Elua has only like 2 attacks that can actually do knock up, and she almost never uses them, so it's something that you almost will never see. It's only the very worst luck to actually see it happen.
Battle 1. Fight.
And the Whirlwind, however, is very powerful, so it's kind of annoying, but not as bad as ice. I'm about to float off. And it's kind of interesting in that Soulcalibur 6 is a much improved game. I've really loved Soulcalibur 6, but for some reason their missions are really disappointing. They have a ice effect that is really powerful and really savage, but even though they have areas where there's supposed to be strong winds, all they do is they add an ice effect instead of having a whirlwind effect like this game has. And I mean, this game is 14 years older than Soulcalibur 3, so why on earth couldn't they re-implement the whirlwind effect to the Unreal Engine? I don't understand. I can only think that there must have been some difficulty with implementing it, but I can't understand why. You know, I don't know the programming of that well, or Unreal Engine to know why, but it just seems odd to me that they couldn't add a wind effect of their own. They have to rely on much cheaper ones, like just ice physics. So next up is Eiji, the Earth of Foundation. She has Impregnable, which is a combination of Quake, which is annoying. Every 3 seconds the ground shakes, and if you're standing, you're stunned. You have to be crouch blocking or be jumping at the time, or in the middle being thrown or something. But worst off, it has Guardian Force, which means she's not affected by anything. Not by any stuns, hit stuns, block stuns. Doesn't matter. She just treats everything as if it's normal. The only good news is that her weapon does damage to her every time she swings it. So she can only be hit by attack throws, which are really, really hard to do. So I'm doing decent damage. I almost always lose at least one character to this fight. But that was actually a decent amount of damage. For a Lance user like Gerardo, level 15 is pretty good, so he can take a lot of hits, but still a pretty impressive amount of damage. Now, if I get Mega next, Aeneas, who's level 1. Okay, I'm going to lose Aeneas as well, which is going to make this slow. But oh well. Usually, as I say, it hits the bottom person, which should have been Mega, but... Okay, well, 2, which is kind of rough, but not the worst. I'm definitely going to take her out on the next one. She'll kill herself before she can kill me. Thanks to her weapon dealing damage to herself. That's the only thing that makes this a simple fight. And her overall bad stats.
This really wasn't a fair contest.
The dancer relies entirely on stun lock and has low hit points, so it's really impossible for her to do anything here, which is why I draw her back. She's much more valuable saving for the next fight. Now, interestingly, if I lose 3 characters, it saves time to build this up back up to a level 3 stronghold, so they will respawn there, but surprisingly, with even missing 2 characters and only 3 hitting the stronghold, it's still just as fast. It pretty much evens out to rebuild the stronghold and let the 2 recharge and come back, as it does to actually just not bother. Because the game pauses while you're building up the stronghold, and you have to do all that, so that combined with the time, at least normally. Yeah, it's still going to go down relatively quickly overall. Yeah, they usually arrive just in time to make a couple of attacks, which, as I say, evens out. One of the interesting quirks with the camera is that when it goes to a fight for a decisive battle by you, like taking a stronghold, you would think that the closer you are to the stronghold, the less time it would take to zoom in and load out. But the game is actually programmed in such a way that the speed at which it approaches is inversely proportional to the distance from it. So the farther you are away, the faster it goes. So it's the same time regardless of distance. It's one of those interesting things I've looked into a bit, but so far I have not seen any...
This time, it will not be like our
I haven't
previous
actually
encounters.
timed it, but there's definitely a much longer pause after the slower zoom when you're closer, so it seems to make no difference. I probably ought to. That could be a, especially since I've gone so far with this anyway, that would be a nice time-saving thing, but...
I'm sorry, but I must
yeah,
move
that's
on.
actually, yeah, pretty good. I must have had a much, much worse fight before, and I'm not surprised, because usually AG can be super-duper awful. My PB on either any percent or SC percent, but I think only one. I think it's actually on SC percent, surprisingly. I actually had no losses in this battle. I managed to kill her with 1 character, which is almost impossible to do. But using 1 character is pretty standard. 2 characters is usually rough, but I'm not going to complain about it here because I probably lost 3 in the previous one. Okay, same group. I have Abilia back, but Abilia is mostly useless. Okay, I need my main character there. That's still fine. The rest of you go to 4. Yeah. This one is a confusing one because there are so many little paths to get my main stronghold. Most of them are coming to attack me, but some of them are manipulated by other things, and I never quite remember the fastest way to get through this. I need to go back and study all my runs a lot more and figure out which way is faster, or save a game file for this one and practice it several times to see just what I do to the AI. Preferably, I want pretty much everybody to charge into the main stronghold, and then I want to defeat them all. It can be dangerous because there are a lot of them, and they're pretty strong, and this is where the AI gets good. This is the final battle against Dalkia, so they are it's pretty much a final level type thing in a lot of ways before a new story starts in the next Chronicles. So there's a lot of weird little things about it. One guy there is not bad. I wonder if Gerardo will actually gain a level. Hopefully most everyone else will charge the main stronghold, but they can be dangerous and they can kill my main character, which means I can lose the entire Chronicle and have to restart. But so it's kind of a risk-reward thing. If I keep one other character back, especially somebody like, say, Mega, or even Gerardo, if I want to have him not involved in this fight. One of the things that this wonderful weapon does is causes occasional guard breaks. And so with certain attacks like that charge that do multiple hits at once, this poke is a really effective attack too. And of course it does chip damage even if you block. That's one of its properties. It has no life regain, which is a little bit of a problem, but it's still the best overall weapon for the thing. Each of them have ultimate weapons. Like I said before, weapons don't actually have stats in the game, but they have properties. Your default weapons have no properties, as do a couple of others, like the ancient weapons that Okadan uses for the Tales of Souls character, for the regular Soulcalibur characters. And some of them, I'm going to wait a sec to see if he is going over or he's going down. So actually what I'm going to do is send Mega to meet him. And then send the rest of the characters on their path. And then you have a bunch of improved weapons that all have 2 random properties that vary from weapon to weapon and style to style. It isn't like every first weapon, second weapon, third weapon of each style has the same 2 properties. No, they're totally different. Then there are the special ones for the named characters in the Chronicles of the Sword, like all the Cluster Pemdo's weapons and such, and they usually have 2 positive properties or 3 positive properties, and 2 or 3 positive properties and 1 negative. I think some of them only have like 1 positive and 1 negative even. But they're the main ones that have negative properties. So, but because they of their limits, they're usually not as good as your standard ones. For the most part, kind of depends, because certain properties are more better than others. Vampiric is one of your best because of how much life you can get back by dealing heavy damage to the enemy. But other ones will... each weapon also has an ultimate weapon that has 4 properties. Usually they're all positive, but you have some, especially Soulcalibur style and other dark weapons, that have a negative property, which almost always is reducing your health over time, like Soul Edge and the Mirasame do. And then the some of them have 2 ultimate weapons that are either, let's see, what's the map say? Is that everybody? Almost. One more. Alright, here's the moment of truth. Now I have to fight them all here, actually. Because they're going to take my stronghold beforehand anyway. So unfortunately, it's going to take 2 fights. That's usual. That's one problem with this strat. Okay, time to use defensive strats for safety.
Battle 1, fight.
Perfect.
Battle 2, fight.
The timing window for starting the spin again after it goes off is relatively wide. It's about 1/4 of a second. You can do it immediately, but sometimes if my button presses are wrong, I can come out the wrong one. That was a little bit slow, but luckily he didn't do anything. So how many am I fighting here? Just 6? I'm surprised. I thought it was actually more. Taunt. Because it's cool. Mostly it's just something to do. Sometimes I would, if enemies were not hit by ring out, I would also attack them constantly while they're on the ground. Or perform a soul charge or something. But I think the taunts are pretty amusing in any case, to begin with.
Final battle.
The first time I did this on MCO, I don't think I actually took much thought into the fact that... Oh god. Carcass. He's going to, if I die here, he's going to destroy the thing before I get a chance to recover, because it's so low. I got him finally.
Whew. It was a decent match.
I've got a lot of levels, though. That's really nice. Okay, one guy left. And let's go for broke.
Final battle. Fight.
Oh dear. Oh, thank you. Game over. When they attack high, since you're in a crouch during that spin, if they attack with a high attack, they're perfectly safe. But if they go low or mid, they'll hit me before my attack comes out. So either they have to choose to do nothing or choose to attack high. I get them if they choose to attack mid or low. They will own me. And that's why I went away from the... that actually shows why I went away from the backup strat, because as opposed to the charge strat, because sometimes it doesn't work. Now, how much risk do I want to do? Is the good question. How much continued risk do I want to do? I think I want to continue using Partha as much as possible. Alright, 3 enemies left. This is a mission where you almost always have to defeat all the enemies because so many of them are aggressively charging your main stronghold. It is, considering how many areas you have to go through, it's almost impossible to reach the end point before, even if you were able to defeat all but like 1 or 2 of the enemies, it'd be almost impossible to take out the main stronghold before they take yours, simply because of the distance, and the fact that the ones who would survive are almost always going to be knights, because they're the slow ones, and so when they finally do reach, they'll do a huge amount of damage. So unfortunately, most of the time you have to defeat all the enemies here. Now we finally get to fight Rowan. He's the horseman up there in the middle, and I'm once again going to use him to save me a few seconds. Because he is also one who will not allow you to cheese him by fighting him in the field, so he's going to start the fight for me. This other one's going to come and intercept me before he reaches, but she'll only get a couple of swings before Rowan shows up and says, "Let's fight for real. Come at me, bro," or sis, or whoever you are. Okay, I lost a few hit points there, but I should be able to take these two.
Battle 1. Fight.
Oh, jeez. Okay, that's bad, and that's the risk I was taking. Which is why I made that Stronghold 13, because or boosted up to level 3 so that she would recover. So this is this is going to lose me some time, basically, is all it is. Gonna make it that much harder to actually get a good time here. But oh well. Considering that it's pretty much a D-rust more than anything, I guess it shouldn't be too surprising. Part of me wants to call this early too, but I really want to get it done since I haven't done one in so long. But part of the thing is that Sunday evening is my favorite streamer and grandfather streamer Poexel's normal streaming time. And usually he's lately been starting not until ta-da, so powerful. He hasn't been starting until like near 7 o'clock my time, like an hour more from now. So I figured that he'd start after I did, before I finished, but it would be, you know, close to the ending. But he actually started, he's been running for more than a half hour now, 40 minutes, just an hour into my stream, so miss all that. I have tomorrow off, which is one of the reasons I'm doing this. I plan to stay up late for once and watch his full stream, but now I'm going to miss the first 2 hours out because of my run. 2.5 probably at the rate this is going. Come on. There we go. Once that guard break comes off, usually, even when you're hit by a guard break, if you keep holding guard, you'll be able to block the follow-up attacks before they land. But some of these weapons have so many hits that come right afterwards that when you have a occasional guard break effect on a weapon like that one has, there are some abusive things you can do. There's actually about the only glitch in the game I've ever found that was in any way usable for speedrunning purposes is a glitch involving those weapons and characters in an all guard break spot, which I was able to show off recently during one of my runs. Like Raphael here is the Soulcalibur character in there. When you have all guard break for some reason, or when an enemy does, and they hit by a guard break effect from an occasional guard break weapon and then hit immediately afterwards, similar to how I was just doing with Gerardo with that Dreadnought a couple times, they will actually take half their life in damage. Just this huge, their bar just vanishes from that hit. And it's absurd and can be extremely effective in shortening those fights, but it's not reliable enough to really make extreme use. It's not reliable enough that I can really rely on it, basically. I always want to press start or something to skip these fights, but there's actually no dialogue here because we have instead a cutscene with Aurelia, the Queen of Dalkia. She has some last words before we fight her, the final force, preventing us from conquering Dalkia for the glory of Grandal. First of all, she utters the line that everybody else does, just like Luna did one earlier.
So, you've come.
Everybody says this line now.
Worthless servant of strife, you shall pay with your blood.
She is also the easiest character in the game. If I had managed to survive those fights with like 10 HP, I would pretty much... Wow. I actually would have lost to her, and it would have been the first time ever because she is so weak. That was the best she's done to me ever. She is so pathetic, especially for a final boss of Dalkia. And now, logically, since, you know, she's just the queen, you wouldn't expect her to be the best fighter in the group, but, you know, best... not better than most of her generals or anything, but even so, pretty pathetic for the final boss of Dalkia and the final boss of the first half of the game. Because yes, even though there are 20 Chronicles tutorial through 12, which is actually a total of 13 out of 21, are about half of the run. Okay, Chronicle 13. It took me 9 minutes. Hopefully I can do a lot better this time around. Now, however, it's a lot tougher because I have... not going to bother with Abelia because I don't do that much better with her. Tongue of Tungnath, so he can do that. Unit type. Oh, I did unit type. Sortie setting, yes, of course. Equip. Bashofan, I guess. Tina equip. Shotensu. At least Tina is going to be my most valuable character at this point. So, a year has passed. We are now the commander of the entire army of Grandal, and Gerardo has declared a rebellion against the Empire. We don't know why. We don't know what he's thinking. Abelia is our second in command, and she's bloodthirsty, totally zealous. All enemies of Grandal, even if they were former allies, will perish, etc., etc. So she's rah-rah, let's get them. All the rest of my units got taken away, though, which is why their experience doesn't matter. I may be able to recover most of them at some point, but they will actually get a level boost, and how much I leveled them before won't matter unless I over-leveled them, which is almost impossible to do, especially in a speedrun setting. I would literally have to keep losing Chronicles and then starting them all over in order to grind out more experience, and it's totally not worth it. If you do New Game Pluses, you'll keep their experience will progress normally from that point forward. So they will come back with whatever experience they had before, and when you start the new game, they'll start with whatever experience they ended the game with. But for the first game, experience beforehand doesn't matter. So we've been given these three useless people instead. Tina is not useless. Tina is awesome. She uses kunai, which is actually a pretty good weapon. It's got a couple of semi-useful attacks, and one that is a little hard to use, but very, very good for heavy damage, if you can get it off right. Spoony Bard, by the way, shout-outs to Spoony Bards like Edward from Final Fantasy IV, and all my free Enterprise randomizer players out there. Enjoy the Spoony Bard. But otherwise, we have a fan and we have a dagger. And as I said before, the dagger is really fun for people to use casually. The bombs are pretty good, but they don't do damage fast, even if they're pretty safe. And the enemies, his stats are so low compared to the enemies, because even though he's higher level than the guys I did have, he's still not high enough level that he's really that strong. So, and the bombs don't do a huge amount of damage, so I'll just be pecking at them, and it will take me at least a minute to kill most enemies with them if I'm forced to, which hopefully will be not much. Oh, I'm going to have to use Abelia there, aren't I? Yeah, that's right. Alright, now one enemy is going to run back to defend this, but then nobody else will. And then things are going to get complicated. I'm going to have to do some precise tricks after taking this stronghold out. One of the interesting things about controls in the game is that the R1 and L1 shoulder buttons will scroll between your characters, and it always scrolls in a set order. And you can also use either the D-pad or the left stick to maneuver around and select people. You've seen me do both. But selecting people with the left stick or D-pad does not remove them from the order that they were in the controls. I don't know if that makes sense the way I'm explaining it, but it's a kind of a funky thing because it basically means that if I was on my main character and then I scrolled around and gave a bunch of orders to a bunch of everybody else, and then ended on, say, the guy right in the middle, and then press the R1 button, it immediately goes to character number 2 and not character number 4. So, and that memory persists between battles as well. It resets at the beginning of each chronicle, but no matter how many battles I load, whoever I had left on R1, L1 will actually go next. So if you have a good memory for who those were, okay, first off, we're going to fortify this up. You know, in some ways, this is nicer than a regular any percent, since the point I want to focus on is my main character most of the time. Although, now I could stand to start giving some experience to these others. No, I could stand to give some experience to Tina because the rest of them are useless. But now I can do that because Tina's experience will continue to grow throughout the game. I will keep 3 of these characters, not Abelia, but the other 3 for the remainder of the game, so their experience does matter in that way. And yeah, that's all about that. So.
I'm sorry sorry, but I must move on.
Even so, the experience is definitely best for the main character for now, still, until the very final Chronicle. Even in the final Chronicle, having her higher level will help make some things a little bit safer. Okay, I think that worked out perfectly. If I did that right, I'll fight both of these two right here, and then everybody else will not have their orders canceled. I'll just need to give one more order to Partha to get her to the end, and then we're good.
Battle 1. Fight.
You should rip.
Final battle. Fight.
That hair, by the way, is Cosmos' hair, called Type X hair. But Cosmos is a secret guest character in the game. Soul Calibur 3 doesn't really have guest characters, but you have all the equipment you need once you unlock it to make a character look exactly like Cosmos from the Xenosaga series, also produced by Namco for the PS2 system. And it's an interesting little side note because even though it's there, none of the Type X equipment is used for the characters in the game that were created for the Chronicles of the Sword, except for the Type X hair. Because there are few enough hairstyles, especially of the longer variety for females, I guess that they decided that it was worth giving her that. So there are like 3 characters in the game that have that hair, I think. There's Karen, there's Agave there, I think there's one more. And that was back in like Chronicle 8. Karen is a little bit further on, I think. Maybe that was Karen. Can't remember, especially since it's been so long since I was playing this a whole lot, but interesting thing about it. So this is a really, really nasty fight that could take a very long time because it is Separate. Separate, we had glue before, you might have noticed it from watching some of the battles. It pulls the people together. And on higher levels specifically, it only targets the enemy, of course, so that their movement is adjusted while the other guy. So that's good for short range, quick fighters, so that it pulls them in range. This is the opposite. It pushes you away, and it pushes you away really, really hard. And Brunhild here is a spear user, which makes sense if you know anything about the origin of her name, which is from the Brunhilder Valkyrie from Norse mythology. She has a bit of a look for it. You can see how it inspired her character. And she takes advantage of that long range and the fact that you're getting pushed away constantly. Because of Separate, my combos are not guaranteed when I use the spin to win. They can work, but only if she allows them to. If she gets up forward, like she didn't, I will actually hit her. If she goes to the side or backwards, I will not. Unless we're backed up to the edge here, in which case. Come on, Brunhild. Stop blocking. This is just wasting our time, you know it. Okay, good. Okay, that wasn't bad. That wasn't bad at all. I had a really good run the last time of this. I thought it would be a little bit, that was a little bit long, but actually, as it turns out, seems like this is roughly average-ish. Because of fighting game behavior RNG and such, there's a pretty wide variation in how each chronicle can go. Now I wonder how my 14 is going to work by comparison. I have no idea what strategy I used in Chronicle 14. I've come up with some things relatively recently, comparatively, since I've been running this for well over 2 years now. Okay, everybody to 2. Yeah, as much as experience for Tina would be good, she's more the backup. I want most of my stuff done by I shouldn't be doing that because I'm not going to go anywhere. That's wasting a bit of time. I'm going to have to defeat at least one person in here with a Quake. But even though the kunai is in the top 5 for weapon styles, it's still far behind Xianghua's Spin to Win in speed for most of the game, so it's still better to rely on her most of the time. One of the kind of nice things about this as a speedrun is that, depending on your personality, it's good for me at least, that there's so much downtime. Allows me to talk a whole lot about it and give my commentary, which is naturally I like to talk about the thing. I hate there just being silence while I'm running. And I can, especially for a run this long, I can understand, and there's a lot of games and runners where the, yeah, so much for the Quake. This is one of the easiest Chronicles in the game. The characters are so weak. It's the first time we have the very nasty loss condition of if my main character dies, I lose the entire Chronicle. But that's not really that dangerous because most of these characters are pretty awful. Only Mitsurugi and Taki here are that dangerous because they're the level 60 Soulcalibur characters. But since I'm ignoring them, I don't have to worry about it very much. And this is, I'm going to have to redo this, but now I'm going to try something new. Hopefully, this is kind of dangerous, but these guys are so weak that even though I'm a bandit, they still aren't doing that much. Let's see how low I get. Now this is something I've wrestled with, but it's the loading times are so bad, this should probably actually save time. Normally I'm charging forward and I want to try and get to the stronghold, and so I just start the fights and I'm afraid of taking too much damage, but because of that I end up doing like 3 fights with a couple of extra loads. It's probably a lot smarter to do this, but this is the first time I'm trying this. Since I'm way behind and I haven't done this in a while, I might as well try a few new things, right?
Battle 1. Fight.
And of course, these nobodies are going to be the heroes. Luckily, being 2-shot is still very much a thing, so... I maybe should just try spinning to start. Let's try that.
Battle 2. Fight.
Great! That's another dancer too, so she takes so much damage. Although pretty much all of them will be 2-shot. Maybe some of the knights will be 3-shot. Assassin is going to be 2-shot.
Fight.
Assassin is being a hero. Nope. 3-shot actually. Wow. Who did I fight first then that took that much damage? Because Assassins, well, they have better defense than you'd think, but they have very low hit points. They are one of the upper classes, so they're not as fragile as like Thieves and Dancers, but they're still really fragile. Oh, and there are counter hits too. Counter hits sometimes do a huge amount more damage than regular hits. And one of the properties of Xianghua's weapon is that it occasionally does counter hit effect. It does an auto counter hit even if it wouldn't normally be a counter hit, so that's probably happened a couple times. So it's essentially like critting, you would think, is the best way of describing how that functions. It actually has a chance to crit, which most weapons in Soulcalibur do not. They added a crit effect overall in Soulcalibur 6, Libra of Souls. That was pretty interesting. When Libra of Souls was announced, I thought that they were using the term. Libra has a couple of different origin meanings and terms. One of them is book. That's what I thought they were saying. It was a book of souls. But it's actually, as it shows in the game, it's actually referring to a scale, a group of scales. Like the, which is also the origin of the astrological sign, Libra. Talking about balance and stuff, and how you're balancing the power of light and dark represented by Soulcalibur and Soul Edge as you gather yourself. This is one of the things I was afraid of. Yeah, that's the other thing I was afraid of with this, was trying to move forward faster rather than fighting them all at once. This might end up losing me the Chronicle. We will see. If it does, I think I might just go ahead and put this up. Because normally in my strat, although it looks dangerous, I'm in no danger. But this actually, it did delay the in-game time for me getting started on this route. Also depends, but these three probably are going to keep moving forward. Yes, they are. Good. Ooh, God, that looks really scary. Luckily, they're only doing 2 hit points each. I'm going to be doing 4 to that one, so I'm going to be doing 16 versus 6. So it's going to be close. Going to be close. Ooh, exciting. Here we go. Nah, 400 divided by 12 or by 16 should go a lot quicker than 160 divided by 6. Them's the maths. Although it's getting close. How close are we gonna get? How scary is it? Ha! 10 hit points. Yes! Now that is a close shave. Okay. 6:30. This should take less than a minute and a half, so I should gain a little bit of time back here. Chronicle 15. I could gain it all back, provided that I do it properly. I lost the Chronicle, I think, in my first run of this. Oh, that worked out great. That was not what I intended to do, but it was actually just the thing I needed. Good. Ignis is pretty easy, but there was always a chance that he could kill me. And the danger here is if he kills me, I lose the Chronicle, because even if I defeat him with another character, because it checks for loss condition before victory condition. Such a great, wonderful, wonderful game system. 18 is going to be really rough. Maybe I can do that one really well. So these assassins attacked in the middle of the night, looking like rebels, but Tina thinks there's something suspicious about them. Oh, darn. I lost some time. It's generally faster to save the game if I accidentally say yes, because trying to go off of takes a little bit more concentration from me trying to say no. So it already takes time to load up the thing, so it's just say yes and move on. So here's the final fight against Gerardo. Going to have to go Bandit for you. Alright, so we are going to go everybody to 3. Yes. Alright. I can't remember if anybody runs back to defend this or not. I think so. But part of me is thinking not at all. Yes, actually. Good. Okay, so I'm not wasting a lot of time. No, they actually came out. That's right. They actually managed to make it out. That's really crazy, but it happens. What am I thinking? I might as well... There we go.
Battle 1. Fight.
You should really give up. It looks like I won today, but who knows what'll happen next time.
So yeah, the did overalls definitely save time in my doing that fight. 7.5 versus the... Okay, now everybody except for... if sometimes it's really hard to track down the path you want to go on these things. Golly, that's wasting so much time. That I'm pretty sure will end up being defended before I reach. Oh, come on. Tina is the one who needs to retreat. Back to here. Yulin. Oh, thank you, Yulin, for going perfectly. And Luca. There. Oh, and Abelia, she is going to have to fight, so I need to equip the best weapon on her, Valkyrie. Longer reach, more defense. Not that the reach is that big of a deal. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it has more effect than at other times. But I've lost a lot of time on this one because of... Maybe I should have actually sent Parth in retreat. Okay, this is the other thing I need to do to ensure that I can make it in time. Alright, so those cavalry will take a long time to get through there. But if with so many enemies advancing now, if I don't go and deal with at least some of them, I will never... They will take my stronghold before I take theirs. Because one of the reasons I was able to do the opposite last time is because my stronghold was much, much stronger than the enemies, and they were also ridiculously weak and doing extra bonus negative damage. Basically, they did a lot less damage. They were nerfed compared to a regular troop, like any of mine would be at the same level or type. But this time, we have knights who are very strong, as well as other powerful people, and... darn. Here's the super strong attack, especially if I can hit with all three. And it's almost impossible for them to block. Oh, I can't believe they didn't quite die, but oh well. As I say, I maybe should have sent my dancer back to deal with these, actually, because they're a little bit more dangerous. Oh well. Alright, now this is another instance where I'll get a new recruit in the next map based on who I defeat first out of a couple that are here. Failfan there is the one who I'll end up recruiting. The other one who I'll probably fight, Rudiger, he is the other potential companion I get. In the speedrun now, most of the time I think I end up with Failfan. So yeah, this is one of the better attacks in the game. Sometimes hard to use because of the control you have over yourself while you're flying up in the air. Also good for knocking out, and luckily the game only allows one person to be hit by ring out. Sometimes it's very unfair in that way. It chooses not the people you would think at all. Like, I go out at almost the same time as an enemy, and it looks like they went out first, but by whatever pixel or frame, it makes the decision. It decided that I was just outside first and I lost. Shutensu gives pretty good life back, so it's a pretty good weapon. The kunai is a pretty nice, especially since Tina is an assassin. Her stats are much better than a ninja. The other group who'd have it at the same time would be able to use. So she is the second best option I have right now for all of this fighting. Pretty solid. A little tricky, but if you get good with that triple kick, they can dominate. If somebody was playing casually, that's who I might suggest, or was trying to speedrun a fresh file, that's who I might suggest starting with as a ninja with katana. Get good at using that skill. Actually, before I go that far, darn it. Wasting a little bit of time here. But I want to fortify this up to 3 in order to ensure that I have maximum protection for my own. Okay, she'll be able to go straight to the end from here. Oh, he left, so I don't have to fight anyone. Excellent. Please? Okay, good. 1 fortify should actually be enough for this because I don't have too many people coming here. And I'm not going to lose anyone, so I don't need to make it 3 for recovery at this point. Alright, this should do. Now I just have to defeat Gerardo with my 5 characters, which is easier said than done, because Gerardo is our second instance of wonderful Guardian Force. So, once again, our enemies are going to be entirely immune to any kinds of damage effects or blocking effects or stun or whatever. He will be able to swing through us. Luckily, like Eiji, he does have a weapon that hurts himself, but he is probably the overall hardest fight in the game, except for maybe final boss Strife, because his stats are so good. He doesn't do a lot of damage, but he can do damage constantly, and you can't do anything about it because you'll try to attack him, and then he will attack you. I guess if you're really good at blocking and being defensive, you can try and block all of his attacks and hope he doesn't get close enough to grab you and be instantly good at blocking, and he'll eventually just kill himself by swinging, but of course we can't rely on that for a speedrun because that's slow. You can't really try and outrange him and dodge because his weapon is such a high reach. You can't let him kill himself that way. And again, we don't want to do that in speedrun anyway, so we just have to try to attack, but the minute we start attacking, he's going to decide to Yeah, we're going to be fine here. I did plenty good. So here's a potential. Could be like a 5-minute fight, but I could still save 12 minutes off of this if I end up beating Gerardo. Whew, here we go. Now, this is the one fight in the game where it doesn't start with your main character, which is just as well since she's pretty lousy at defeating him, sadly. Although she might be able to do a bunch of damage with spin if he doesn't counter her first. Just hitting him with it would do a lot of damage. It picks a random character. Usually it's like whoever's injured the most. So since Tina was the only one who fought, that kind of flies. And then it picks the order kind of randomly too. He's really good at all the basic little things too, like guard impact, as if he needed, you know, more defense. Oh, jeez. That was a really lucky hit by him. So that's... If I lose 3... Well, as long as I win, I'll be fine. Normally, losing 2 people is pretty standard. Losing only 1 is fantastic. Oops. Thanks for costing yourself a lot of health. And that's it. Yep. Not bad. If I lose 2 people, that's very acceptable. Very, very acceptable. Especially since I have no fights after this. It's not nearly as big a deal as saying, oh, geez. Okay, here's a chance. Not enough range. It's too good at blocking. I might lose 3, but that's a whatever. I think it almost always goes to your main character last, so I'm really hoping we don't see the main character. It does lose a little bit of extra time for each death, compounding because of also having to do other things. Wrong one. Now, these hits would stagger him if they hit him. This is about the best thing you can do with the fan. If you can get far enough away. Luckily, a lot of throws will not ring you out. Oh, jeez, but that did. Okay. Alright, now Abilia. Great. The Sword and Shield, I'm really not all that good with. Abilia stats are kind of not bad, but... Oh, almost. So, he actually got stunned from that, you may have seen, because if you land that on a counter hit, it becomes an attack throw. And attack throws, that was what I was trying to do with Luca as well, with the dagger, is that attack throws will actually affect them. It's the only thing that does, but it's so hard to reliably do it. And of course, some of them can be escaped, not all of them, but that's one that can be escaped, and it only works if it hits on a counter hit, but it happens to... And again, his AI is so good, he pretty much automatically escapes those throws, but... I've got him, though. This'll hit. Good, good, good. Yes. Okay. Unfortunately, Abilia leaves after this, so that extra levels she got in her pristine Sterling 1-0 record are not going to stay. Or not going to do any good, I mean. I will get her back later. I don't know if she gets a level up or not. Here's the longest cutscene in the game, the biggest break you can get, basically.
Strength is controlled by others. Think for a moment. For whom do you wield your power? For what purpose? And against whom?
But even with the super long, wow, this is going to be a really good time for this Chronicle. It really is.
You must learn to control.
Again, I've had that general strat in mind, but I executed it pre this battle to absolute perfection. So, boosted just enough as I needed, fell back just as I needed. I just need to remember that I can make it all the way through that one mission, and there are like 5 of these Chronicles that, most of the Chronicles I've got my setup pretty much perfected, but there are about 5 of them where I'm still a little loosey-goosey on the details. I made a lot of adjustments trying to find the perfect thing, knowing that I was wasting time in other places. And so I'm not quite sure of where I'm at yet. And Chronicle 15 is one of them. Because there's a couple things I've tried to do with it. Among others, it actually, the person who joins you next battle, Theophan or Rudiger, who we did avoid Rudiger entirely, so we didn't even get to see him. But the one you defeat that joins you, I've often wondered if there's any way to not defeat either of them, but it's pretty much impossible. So now, after we've defeated Gerardo, we put down the rebels, and suddenly we've decided, oh man, it really sucks that we killed General Gerardo. Let's, I have to bring him next battle, so I might as well prep him now. He's going to be basically the same thing as her. So, but the two we want are Tina and I guess Lin. I don't like any of these options. Luckily, this would be awful in Soulcalibur %, because so now I'm restricted to 3 characters. Okay, a lot to talk about here. First of all, storyline-wise. So we're suddenly blue now, instead of red, which we've been the entire game, because red is Grandal. And now we're fighting against Grandal, because we did our orders, we followed them, we fought against General Gerardo. You know, we always thought he must have a reason, but we never asked them before we fought him. He instead uttered the Soulcalibur boss line, "So you've come." And then we fought him, and we beat him up, and then that person who appeared with Soul Edge was Emperor Strife himself. He just shows up and kills him with Soul Edge. And suddenly we feel very, very sorry about what we did. And we decide that the only way we can make it up to poor General Gerardo is by taking his place as leader of the rebels. And so Theophan, one of his big lieutenants, we meet up with him as he's preparing to, after recovering from his defeat at our hands, he's going to take on the Emperor all by himself. And we join up with him and say, hey, we'll help you out. And he's like, why should I trust you? You're the one who wiped out our rebels. And we're like, well, yeah, but we feel sorry about that. And, you know, we've thought better of it. And now we want to be good guys. So now we are leading. We're called Arceus for no good reason that I've been able to ascertain. I have no idea if it's in any way comes from or is related to Arthas from the Warcraft universe. It doesn't seem to make sense to do so, but whatever. So we're given the blue flag, which nobody else seems to have. We were fighting against blue, you may remember, during our testing grounds before, so it's the alternate Grandal color scheme and setup, but now we're taking that. Fighting against Grandal forces, and for starters, we have this wonderful map, my least favorite of all the Chronicles, because you're stuck with 3 characters. Not only are you stuck with 3 characters, but you're stuck with 3 characters against 3 Soulcalibur characters. Usually, during my run, one of the things I talk about a lot more is the Soulcalibur characters. I mentioned a few here or there, but they're a little fun addition. And for the most part, even though they're level 60, their AI isn't super great, and with the Dancer and or with the Katana-wielding Sword Masters, you can usually beat them without too much trouble. Which is one of the reasons why SC % is fun. It's just a little bit more interesting with the extra fights. And even though I'm still almost guaranteed to win, there's a little bit more... I didn't need to go that far because somebody's going to defend that before I get past it. But there's a little bit more of a dangerous fight there. We don't really want that too much in the speedrun because one lost battle loses anywhere from a minute to 2 or 3 minutes, depending on where it is in a Chronicle. It can lose a lot of time, as you've seen from a couple of these earlier things. But it adds a little bit of mixture there. But this one is awful, because you have, first of all, Zossomel and down lose. This is kind of a fun mission, but very bad for speedruns, because, as it says literally, if you go down, you lose. Whichever character falls to the ground first, from getting knocked down or knocked up in the air or something, or stunned falling. Once you hit the ground prone, you are launched into the air like you're a bomb and lose all your health. It's a very visually appealing way of losing too. It isn't just like, oh, you're down, you lose. No, you get blasted by a bomb into the air. And Zossomel is programmed in his AI to take advantage of that, so he's kind of tough to beat sometimes. He's not good against the shoulder charge, luckily, but most other attacks you have to take a bit of practice with most weapon styles before you can figure him out. He's a little bit easier to figure out than most, but on the other hand, he can one-hit KO you really easily with his moveset and AI programming. And then, but he's not the worst part here. That's kind of bad when you only have 3 characters and you can be one-shot, but in addition to that, you have 2 characters together in another map that is really awful. I've talked about Whirlwind. It isn't as bad as Ice, but some of them are pretty bad, and it's especially bad when it's combined with 2 Soulcalibur characters. Far to the east here, I'll point it out in a little bit, as soon as I'm done ordering these guys to their next destination. And you have to fight both Talim and Yun Sung. And once again, they are programmed to take advantage of the fact that they're on a map with 3 sides open. So a lot of ways to ring out, and the fact that the wind is constantly pushing you around and getting you closer generally to those ring outs. So they are luckily pretty weak stat-wise. They're a saint and a thief, so their stats are horrible. Even for level 60s, they're not that great. Your sword masters in the mid-20s are better. But it's still an awful, awful, awful fight to try and do when you only have 3 characters. And of course, but even on SC %, it's not that great, because you only have 3 characters, which means that you are only doing 60% of the damage that you'd be doing to a tower normally with 5 characters, which you should have at this point. Very, very cruel of them to suddenly restrict you to 3 characters. So regardless, though, it's very odd. No. Something else occurred to me about my timing of these. For some reason, I couldn't find my splits for this category. I had to check on them off of speedrun.com and re-record them for this, because I didn't have them. It was very weird. I was wondering if there was an error in my calculation or something, but unless I just did very bad splitting times, which I sometimes do, and I don't really worry about. A lot of other more precise speedrunners, especially more competitive categories, will go back and double check them, and they'll just skip a thing if they totally forget to split. Like several minutes later, they remember, they'll just skip the split and stuff. I tend to not do that because nobody else competes with me anyway, and it all evens out in the end. So I just kind of leave it alone. But I thought I might have done, unless I did some weird splitting like that, there's no reason for my splits being as odd as they were. I've had some struggles this run, but I honestly am rather surprised that that I did as poorly in some of these compared to my last run. I was probably a lot... I know that when I was doing that, I was doing a lot more of these runs in general, so I was a lot more on practice with at least with the Dancer, and with Mega as well. He had a bit of struggles with a couple of them. But even so, this is a safety fortify. Yeah, I still went a bit too early. Oh well. It means that I'll save a little bit of time if I lose, versus a little bit more than I would if I end up losing. This is a difficult fight, because another problem with having 3 characters at this point, even if I ignore the Soulcalibur characters, from this point on, most of the enemies I'll be facing are going to be high level and extremely good AI. These are Grandal Elites, they're shown it, their levels are insane, and they have really good aggressive AI, and really awesome stats. You can see how much damage I'm doing. Samurai are not the bulkiest characters, they have only medium HP and defense, and it still took me so long to get through her. And she does insane damage because she's a samurai with a katana. And even Feng Lin, who is normally a style that I'm not afraid of, can kill me very easily if she decides to. And because she's a sage, she takes even less damage. That's almost a darn, because my combo is going, so... Okay, good. She was kind. Sometimes, the biggest way in which ringing out not being an automatic victory in Chronicles of the Sword, one way that it does hurt me, is that if I get a ring out, sometimes it can break up that combo that I have. And if they break out of it, and then decide to be aggressive, my chance to own the fight, even though it may go a little bit quicker if I'm lucky, I can't own the fight anymore, because I have to set up the combo again, which is the most dangerous part of running a Dancer. And I have a very, very good chance of losing at any time here with these characters. They're all strong. I have another strong separate here. The character I'm fighting does not have as much of an abusive long-range weapon, though it does have a few abusive long-range attacks as I'm pushed away, but it's really hard to get spin to win to work properly when you're getting hit by a powerful separate. So this is going to be the last dangerous fight in the game. Or in this Chronicle, I mean. The final fight is not very hard at all. I can get owned, but losing a character in the very last one does not lose nearly as much time as losing one before the final fight does, because then that's less time that your character is alive and defeating and helping to take out other strongholds. So Irene, unfortunately, will charge in here as well to help defend. That means this is another map where, except for the Soulcalibur characters, I'm basically forced to fight everyone because they're in my way. In SC%, I recently came up with a clever way of getting those last two I fought out of the combat. It's not that huge. It's not better than any percent because I have to fight 3 Soulcalibur characters besides, and the only way I'd get around this is by fighting Talim and Yun Sung instead, which, as I said, is an awful fight. Awful fight. So it's not that much. It's not an improvement over any percent, but at least it gives a small silver lining to having to do the Soulcalibur percent. How far I get pushed away. Oh, thank you for coming forward. 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 Oh, you don't know how good it feels to see an enemy do this. Because if she doesn't get straight up forward towards me during this, I will not combo her. It's entirely dependent on her. So this is really RNG. Oh, man. Yeah, see there. She got to the side, I couldn't combo her. She gets to the side, I can't combo her. This has still been a pretty good fight. Oh, darn. I say, and then... Oh. I think she's a samurai, not a ninja, which is bad. Ninja and samurai can both use that style, so... the AI, or the designers of the game assigned every class... There's no totally unfair class, like a class using the wrong kind of weapon or anything. They are actually... Their stats may sometimes be skewed in different ways. Like Heil is a gladiator, but he's far more powerful than a ordinary gladiator. He has like knight stats, but he's a gladiator. But other than that, there's no totally unfair thing like you know, a knight that is using a weapon that knights can't use, like sword and shield. Not officially, at least. Although, as I say, I guess it makes no difference with their stats, because that's really all it affects. The only other thing it affects, but I also don't know the exact stats, since there's no way to see that without, you know, plumbing the code of the game. Maybe I ought to find the guy who does Soulcalibur 3 mods and stuff. He's obviously done all that code cracking. I should ask him to pull up stats and stuff for me from Soulcalibur 3 to help my speedrun. Something of the sort. As if I could ever do anything like that. So, final fight. This is one of the other... Once you've assigned... If your main character survives that battle and you're heading here, this is the second biggest break in the game, because this is such a big fortress and there's so many hit points to go through. You have almost a minute and a half to use the bathroom after you send your guys through there, so... This was pretty good, actually. I might come close to breaking even here. Which, as long as I can keep breaking even, I could actually PB on this, which I knew was a possibility because my 15 was so awful. How are the others? 18, 13 minutes? That's about... Sounds about right. 17 is looking at only 8 minutes. That sounds about right. And then 20 minutes after for those two. I had a really awesome Chronicle 20 somehow. I saw from the measurements. 15 for 19, that's about average. So 18 I think is a little slow, but otherwise my times are really good here too. I was really on the ball for this.
Battle 1, fight.
It's hard to believe how good I was back a year ago when I was running this constantly. Wow, that is very unusual. Kagami is not that good. He is the sigh of relief after having to deal with that separate, but he decided he was going to be a champion today. Now I have to use Guilin. Oh, this is going to be great. Oh no, they gave me Tina. Yay. Thank you for giving me Tina. Gotcha. Whew. Okay, that wasn't too bad. even with the loss of Partha, that was pretty good. Pretty good. Okay, Chronicles 17 is fun because this is the opportunity to regain my characters. So the next group of enemies we're going to be facing is largely consists of your former party members that you had, including the ones you rescued from Haltis in Chronicle 8, the Haltis soldiers that you rescued from Mileta, I should say, rather. There are 3 named ones, and Aelion always joins you. The other 2 only do if you save them, but both of them are actually available to be re-recruited here. Any of these people I defeat, plus Aeneas, who's the important one here. And Aelion also rejoins at this point, which is kind of convenient. Gives me another useful character, as well as either Jinkai or Xiaoxin if you recruited either of them. She's actually moderately useful with the Chain of Hades. So we want her, Tina, Yuelin, and Luca, yes, for now. And we all want to go at 2 because it's the easiest way. 3 is theoretically a little bit closer, but sometimes it's hard to... I usually go to 3, but it's sometimes really hard to path properly. So Jinkai or Xiaoxin would also join you at this point, as well as Aelion, if you had recruited either Jinkai or Xiaoxin. Since we didn't, they are not here, we don't get their text boxes, which is better. But Aelion has been in retirement, I guess, but comes out of retirement to rejoin us here. In addition, you know, again, all of these strongholds here, these 3, and then these 3 are all guarded by our other former units. So as we defeat each one, they will join us. For whatever reason, Mega's the only one who leaves his stronghold. He comes out of there to rush into here to help protect us, to help protect Sophitia. Because Sophitia's here, we're going to see our first Soulcalibur character. One of only 2 we will face during an any % run, and both are on this map, because coming up the side here through Sophitia and then Tira is actually a lot faster than going anywhere else. And conveniently, that means that our best buddy Mega will actually rejoin us here. The only other one here that potentially I'd want to add to my party in place of, say, Yui Lin would be Eurydice. But Eurydice is pretty far out of the way, so it's not worth the time to get her. As I'd waste, it would have to be really, she would have to be really effective, and again, Katana, awful. Okay, Coin Collector is this one. Oh man, sometimes when they don't get up is worse than when they stay down is worse than when they get up, because if they get up, I'll knock them back down. Staying down is the only way the computer gets out of the combo. That was my 100th victory. Hooray. So now, since we defeated Mega, we'll get him back. Unfortunately, we can't recruit Sophitia by defeating her, however. That would be super awesome if you could recruit the Soulcalibur characters by defeating them. Alright, that was kind of rough. I'm potentially going to lose to Tira, who is normally easy, but the last dozen or so times I've played, she's actually been very threatening to me, and oftentimes loses me time by killing my character. Very unfortunate. And they're all in their secondary outfits rather than their primary outfits, which in Sophitia's case I really like. A lot of the secondary outfits are just plain funny, which sadly, that's one of the other reasons I like SC%, because you get to fight all of them and you get to see those funky outfits like Cthulhu, Squidhead, Yoshimitsu, and Sun, Moon, Flower, Two-Face, Voldo, and Elephant Man, Rock, similar ones to that, Hammerhead, Astaroth. They are great. These ones not so much. Tira's a clown, but Sophitia's just looks cool, and I don't like her first outfit in Soulcalibur 3. It's very similar to her previous outfits in a way, mostly, you know, just a bustier-like thing and a skirt. But she had her blue accents on her previous suits, looked a lot better. There's more color, and pretty much all the other Soulcaliburs, she has this blue, the same outfit but in blue. But by making it just white and gauzy-like, it looks more like she's in a nightgown shift thing. It's just bizarre. I don't like it. Her secondary outfit, though, looks like a pretty cool warrior maiden dress thing. Although she's not technically a warrior maiden, since she's now a mother. Warrior mother dress. Let's go with that. So here's Tira. Perfect. You're mine, Tira. Now, Tira is the only Soulcalibur character with 2 classes, or at least 2 classes that can use her skill. As a character, when you fight her, she is always an assassin because they're much stronger than thieves. But Thief is the other class that can use Tira, and she's the only one who gets 2 because there are 23 classes or 23 Soulcalibur characters, 12 classes that can use them. Swordmaster, the 13th class, is an aside; they don't get to balance out their awesome stats in getting every other weapon. That worked really well, though. And so they had to give 2 to 2 people, so they decided to make Tira both a thief and an assassin. I guess it works, whatever. And, of course, you'd want her, especially as a level 60 super boss this late into the game, you'd want her to be the higher level class rather than the stronger class rather than the weaker class. Now, Aeolus here, is the other character in the game after Arion from Chronicle 4, who is extremely tall. Otherwise, he's the same kind of, character that you can make any of these characters you meet except for the Soulcalibur ones using the equipment and the basic create a soul function. You can remake Luna and Abelia in her format and any of these other characters, including Arion and Aeolus, except that Arion and Aeolus have incredibly tall sprites for some reason. I've never figured out why. They look kind of similar in their get-ups. They have full face masks and dark, diabolic-looking armor, and both their names start with A and have a similar Greek feel to them, so I don't know if they're supposed to be related, but considering that one's from Grandal and one's from Dalkia, it seems unlikely. So, other than just making the tall character, it doesn't seem to affect battle much. It's not like they have a bigger hitbox, and I don't think they actually even have a better reach, but it's a weird effect. Later on, of course, in later Soulcalibur games with your create a soul function, the height makes a big difference. Because of the extra reach from height, they make a balance to that in allowing bigger characters actually do less damage than smaller characters, which doesn't make a lot of sense on the surface, because if you're bigger, you should be hitting harder, aka Astaroth, obviously. Bigger men versus Siegfried and everyone should do a lot more damage than Talim. But that balance is baked into their weapons anyway, of how they are, and so it's just as the smarter balance. So yeah, you can see how tall Aeolus is. And he almost was a pain. He's usually not all that hard, but again, because he has all unblockable, if he decides to attack me first and use the right attacks, you theoretically couldn't beat him, because he'll just preempt you every time, and you won't be able to block to gain an advantage on him. It's pretty awful. Luckily, he was kind today, which is good, because some of the other guys I've been fighting haven't been kind. Now, at this rate, I should get a sub-3 Chronicle 18 pretty easily, which would be good. Normally, I'd aim for a lot better than that, but a sub-3 Chronicle 19 is what I'd normally be aiming for on any percent, but considering the awfulness of the first few things, I'm on a really, really good pace. Okay, this is another awful one. Aeneas? Yes, actually. Mega, Tina, and Aelion. Okay, that's not a bad group. Alright, so you're going to be at 3, and the rest of you at 2, yeah. This is one of the most complicated strats, so hardest to remember. So now we're facing Abelia. Abelia is one of the last people standing, well, technically she's the last general standing between us and the capital city of Perusia. Actually, I don't want Aeneas to go. I want Mega to go first. Oh, I should be going Blast. I'm doing the SC % route rather than the any %. That's actually bad. Well, let's find out what happens now. I don't know why I'm suddenly thought that this was the way to go. So I'm not going to be able to gain as much time as I hoped on this one, definitely. Sub 13 is still probably, or sub 3 hours still probably on the table, but so normally on Soulcalibur %, I have to fight the Soulcalibur character, which in this case is our good friend Siegfried, and he is right here. And this is kind of a weird map. It's spread out weirdly. Siegfried's way over here in this place. So actually going south, hitting through here, and then there's only one more stronghold between me and the main one, so I go that way. But on any percent, because of the weird way this map is spread out, I can actually gain more advantage by going... Okay, now I've got some people coming my way. This is kind of rough. Let's see. Well... that's a long time to wait, so I'm going to go ahead and start this fight. And this may end up working out not too badly. The only problem is there's a lot of guys wandering around, and there are a couple of Abilia's units mixed in with the elite that we first encountered in Chronicles 16 that have high 40s, low 50s, and a big red color scheme and really outrageous stats. But we also have Baldwin, level 3. A level 3 character at this point in the game. Pretty hilarious. Again, this is theory crafting from me based on just logic and assumption, but he has the look and feel with his weapon and semi-generic equipment that he could have been a character like Notice here, and Ishtar, who we'll also be seeing, who was one of Abilia's named units in the first Chronicle when we fought against her in the training mission. And so my theory is that he was supposed to be in that group as well, but he was removed either on accident or on purpose. On purpose is just as likely as on accident. They decided, nah, we don't want 3 named characters here. We want to have a few more generics. 3 is too many for the first Chronicle. Oh my word, was he actually not in combat yet? We were just shy of him? Okay, well. I'm going to wait for the knight. Who is taking the brunt for me? Not Mega, it's Aeneas, isn't it? Is it actually Leon? Doesn't matter. So I guess well, it would have been the same anyway. Now he's coming. He's probably going to have to get in a fight with him too eventually. We will see. Only one going that way though, that's good. I should be fine. Big mistake rerouting.
Battle 1. Fight.
It's one of those weird ones that has such interesting... Here's Ishtar, as I said. So that's the third. Now all the rest of the ones here. There are a couple of generics. Most of the ones closest to the main stronghold are generic for some reason. But it's Ryuga, one of the elites, as I thought. Luckily, Donna's too strong. Alright. Getting him some very useful levels. He is going to be my best hope to take out Strife. He's the one character I want highest level going into 20 at least. You know, no one's going to get higher level than my Dancer, but he's going to be my most reliable, important character. I wonder if I can tempt him away. So that's a knight, so she is going to be very, very, very slow. So if I can pull her away from attacking me from behind by baiting in my leader, that will, if I don't have to fight her, that'll save quite a bit of time. We have to see if she'll take the bait. Will she take the bait? Probably not, even as slow as she is. I might make the stronghold before she reaches me, though. Knights are so slow. So slow on the map. No, no, not quite. Oh, she's just gonna reach me. Too bad. Ha 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 ha. Oh, well, I have taken this, so... I'm still... There's no way I'm going to get all my units past before she starts a fight with them, though. She is right there. Well, whatever. I need to pull my leader back now, too.
Battle 1.
Oh, of course it's Aeneas. I forgot. Bringing Aeneas might be actually bad. Oh, jeez. Especially since... Oh, my word. Generics! You're not supposed to be that good. This is a good spammable for somebody this week. if the charge doesn't work. The charge is really good for moving in.
Battle 2.
Although it's easy for them to sidestep. And somehow to... Oh, blast. I almost wish he'd died.
I shall offer this victory unto the heavens.
I might start the battle with him and let him die to Ming Yu. And then I'll build this back up to level 3 so he'll recover here. And he'll be able to take on, what's her name, at full strength. Okay, you run back to the main stronghold so you don't get attacked. Again, the main reason that I am not moving forward with Partha at this time in this fight is because I once again have a loss condition of if Partha dies, I lose the Chronicle. So I can't involve her in any of these fights, especially against the final boss, because the final boss is almost impossible to solo. Again. Okay, do as much damage as you can. None. Well, she took a bit of damage somehow. That wasn't her weapon. She must have been, like, barely hit or something in it. Or just the swings damage from my pathetic bandits hitting her in the meantime. Tina is not bad. Ooch. Oh, jeez. I might want her to lose too, at this rate. That's a really bad thing, but... No. Ask and you shall receive. So, my odds of beating my 13 are now much lower after these 2 losses, too. But, oh well. Give me that much more to improve on next time.
Battle 3. Fight.
Aelion could potentially be really good against Abilia, too, with that attack. Because that's an attack throw, it can actually affect Guardian Force. Because, yeah, I didn't mention that, did I? Abilia has Guardian Force. So, that's problematic. She also does not have a weapon that is good at... does not damage her when she attacks, unfortunately. So we can't rely on her to kill herself or help herself along by killing herself. On the other hand, what we do have is her stats are a lot less than Gerardo's, so... Now those 2 should recover there, which I'm going to be starting a little bit slow because of that, but we should be okay. And another reason, of course, to fortify that is so that I can keep from having to fight those 2. I may have to back off a character to fight them as well. Who would I choose? Probably... Anais is actually reliable for doing some damage through chip, at least, if nothing else. Aelion I want because she has the attack throw, so maybe Tina. Tina might be the worst overall against Abilia. Since I didn't have all 4 here first, those 2 might actually get through my level 3 before I get through the main stronghold here. So, if so, I need a character to retreat to act as a plug. So 475 is half. I need to do a comparison. Okay, yeah, he took that out. I was expecting that. But 1 won't be able to get through my stronghold in time. 475 is half. Are they at half? They are a little bit under half. No, they won't reach me, though. I should be able to take it out before they reach me. Because luckily they're only generic, so they're not that strong. This is also one of my favorite just silly strats in the game, because it's actually very RPG-like. I've watched a lot of RPGs that use a similar kind of strategy, but this is the only time in the game where it's useful, because there is a very unique win condition here. Most of the time, when you're fighting a final boss, you have to either defeat the final boss assassination or take the main stronghold, either way, but it's pretty much the same. Oh, I did just barely before them, which is fine. But this is actually a case where defeating the enemy, and this is most remote. I could save time by pulling people back, in fact, but especially on this setup, I don't think I want to do that. It's not safe, because she does have Guardian Force. She could kill all 4 of my characters.
I will not lose against a traitor. Even
Whatever
if
you
it
say,
is you.
Abelia.
Battle 1. Fight.
Decent amount of damage. Golly, I'm doing well with him. The chip damage really helps out in against an enemy who can block freely. As long as I can beat her, I really don't care how long it takes, though. It's almost better if she kills off a couple people. But still, that's not bad. That means I'm at least not going to end up losing all 4 of my characters and then effectively having to restart the Chronicle, but not even getting to immediately having to get my main character killed first. Her weapon does damage her when she blocks. It's anti-chip damage, basically, kind of thing. Not really anti-chip damage. There are weapons that will restore health when you block, so those are real anti-chip damage, but it's a weapon effect there instead. Oh wait, there are 2 other characters. Man, I don't feel like fighting. Maybe I will just start this over. I want to go join my stream early. We're going to end this. Goodbye. Oh, thank you for being so fast, Tina. You can kill yourself really fast. High mobility. Although I guess my Swordmasters are probably just as good at agility. They should be. Their stats are so outrageous. They are lower level, though.
Battle 4. Fight.
Thanks for the help. We didn't do quite enough damage to really help, but... Oh, this is a weapon that prevents ring out. Oh, come on. Yeah, please. It'd actually be faster to defeat them with her. It might. Okay, well, so much for that. So, because this is actually an assassination mission, so instead of trying to... I have to be at the right range, though. Instead of trying to take the stronghold, I only have to defeat Abelia. So, normally, my strategy is to kill myself. And then, and now it might be faster to kill myself still. I don't know, maybe not. I only have 1 character left, though, which is Mega. Excellent, perfect. Okay, it's going to be faster to kill myself now, definitely. Because, unfortunately, all the little guys are also affected by... that's a very much double-edged sword there. They'll have to remember going forward. That she can do that, but she can't kill herself. Because her weapon, it doesn't totally prevent ring outs, but it greatly reduces the chance, especially since it's such a high-level weapon. It is an ultimate. So, maybe I should go just change her to a... weapon like Black Widow, just in case I need to use her against Abelia. She can still do her attack throw, but won't have the ring out problem. That is hilarious. That's the first time that that's ever done that to me, though. So, okay. Still lost a couple minutes. This was pretty awful, but I'm still ahead of my old one because my 15 was so bad. It wasn't quite as bad as I thought, though. Only 7 minutes behind. I thought it was like a 15-minute. Whatever. So, even though I didn't take the stronghold, this is the one point in the game where you don't have to take the enemy stronghold to win, except for 20, which has no strongholds. But that actually has strongholds. It's the only one, because every other one, you pretty much have to... because of circumstances. Like the one against Luna, you always have to... Any of the enemies that will be in that stronghold, you also have to defeat, so... And speaking of Luna, hey, she's joined us now. She was taken in by Gerardo after the war, and he said, if anything happens to me, you have to protect her. She's like, why is it me? Anyway, here's this sword. Use it. It's kind of good. Like, okay. Alright, now we want 5, 5, 5 for simplicity's sake. I had a pretty good run of this last time. I'm amazed that it was that good. 14 minutes is pretty darn fast for this Chronicle, and I have no idea what I did that made it so fast. Well, again, actually, most of my things I've been thinking about have been SC percent, though, which is quite a bit more complicated, so... Why can I only think of my SC percent strats for some of these missions? That's really weird. Oh well. But it's a lot quicker here. I get a lot more, I can go a lot more direct route. Yeah... I won't be able to give Mega quite as much experience as I would like. So this is the largest overall map in the game. Not the longest, so it's longest on 100% by far. You have to take so much. But it's not that long, especially on any percent, compared to ones like Chronicles 16, which again, you have only 3 characters to do, and you have to take most things, including most enemies, but I can avoid a lot of the enemies and most of the strongholds. There's a couple of neat things here, like End, the ultimate level 99 super boss over here, who I'm not sure why his name is End, unless he's supposed to be the end-all. I don't know what it's a reference to. I don't know any other Namco games that have anybody like that. It's not in any Soulcalibur game unless he's supposed to be Edgemaster, but he doesn't appear like Edgemaster does in the other games, so that doesn't make much sense either. I guess it's theoretically possible they could have named him End instead of Edge as a mistake, but again, that's like a far-out theory. I've thought that that might be the case, but the more I think about it, the sillier it seems. So I don't know why either End is there. Here we have Nightmare, the final Soulcalibur character. He's a barbarian, which sadly makes him a little bit new. A little bit of a nobody. Because barbarians are one of the first classes you get. They're one of the better of the first classes. They're actually the first in the list. But compared to the upper classes of knights and stuff, they're pretty weak. And the fact that Siegfried is a knight and you just fought him, you know, the tied with the opposite but equal of the samurai and the 2 ultimate non-swordmaster classes with super high, more hit points and defense than any class except for swordmaster, and pretty decent agility and attack power still. They're a strong class, but the barbarian only has attack power comparable to the knight and a lot less hit points and defense. Although a lot more hit points than the dancer and thief and ninja and even assassin. But still on the weaker class side. And for Nightmare as the last Soulcalibur character is kind of appropriate because, you know, he's always been a semi-final boss type anyway. Even if he's not, you know, really an Inferno or an Abyss type. But he's the penultimate boss in a lot of Soulcalibur situations. And for him to just be a barbarian is pretty dissatisfying. You could make logical arguments about switching around a lot of the classes. They decided that each class would have 2 Soulcalibur characters in it, so, you know, makes logical sense. A decent division, only 1 extra, which they use Tira for, and that's fine, whatever. Thief, Assassin, close enough parallel. Aren't really that many characters who could qualify as thieves in the main Soulcalibur universe, so whatever. But putting Barbarian makes sense from a perspective that Iron Sword, which is mostly a Nightmare-styled weapon, is there, but makes less sense from a, you know, this is supposed to be a final boss type perspective, which, you know, as the last Soulcalibur character you fight, he kind of should be. At least that's my feeling on it. So we only have to take a total of 3 strongholds during this entire Chronicle. And they're big, but there are a lot of us. Well, 4 when you include the... No, I guess it's 5. I forgot about that one for a second. So it's long routes, but still, 5 is still less than you're taking in, say, Chronicles 16. There's 6 you have to take on the optimal path. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, I believe 4, 5, 6. Yeah, pretty sure it's 6. A few more on Soulcalibur percent, because I have to go down this route in order to get Nightmare. But it's still a lot quicker comparatively. I mean, that's as many as you're fighting in Chronicle 11. It's a much straighter route, a lot less winding, so it goes faster, but even so, it's nice that you have such an open path. Of course, last one we technically only had to take one. She will come out to defend, so I preempt her, because why not? In some ways, at this point, Partha's levels are wasted, because I hopefully will not have to do any actual fighting with her in Chronicle 20. If I do, everything has gone wrong, and I'm probably dead. But the more hit points she has, the more risky strats I can take in preserving the rest of my characters to enable them to do more. There's advantages and disadvantages to doing this route. Generally, it's disadvantageous. It's still generally better to have sword masters, even in the mid-20s and low 30s, for the final mission. They'll still have better stats overall than these characters that were given to me are, even though they're higher level theoretically. I shouldn't even go that far, because I'll have to take this first. Paralysis Glue, a combo. A lot of them here. But even so, some of them have a decent amount of hit points at least. So here's one of my favorite strongholds, Cure Sapalit, which is a lot of your Weibo English kind of translation. It's supposed to be Cure Separate, but for whatever reason it was badly translated. That is the only... so it's a combination of Cure and Separate together, of course. You'll almost never fight anybody there, so it doesn't matter hardly. But it's very weird that it has, you know, that they translated that badly. I am now past my normal any % time. I finished that in 3 minutes and 6 seconds, which isn't totally unremarkable. Okay, there we go. Oh, darn, she didn't get up. Okay. Yeah, we're fine. A bit worried there for a second. Again, once we're at this level, really anybody can own you at any time if they get aggressive enough. You need every combo to go off. I might go ahead and stick with this 5, actually, the more I'm thinking about it. I've oftentimes used Luna in a couple of attempts when I've done either fresh files where I don't have enough characters or this one, because she has a lot of hit points, but I'm so awful with her style that it kind of doesn't matter. Okay, you block that. I need to send one person to block, and the rest of you I should wait for. Now, a couple of those guys down below are going to try and run back to defend the main stronghold once I start attacking it, and of course I don't want that to happen, so once again I'm going to use my plug strat to have a character attack that stronghold, and then they won't be able to leave. The enemy will never initiate a stronghold battle when they're on the defensive. They will wait until it gets to a decisive battle. Which you can also do, but it's of course waste time if you know that you're going to have to fight. You want your person to defeat them as soon as possible generally, and then move on to the next battle.
But who knows what'll happen next time?
That was a lot more damage than I should have taken from a noob like this. Another interesting thing about this is similar to the last Chronicle, for some reason, instead of being at the forefront as they are usually, your enemies are all towards the back. They're both going to be involved because of that. Oh well. So I'll have to give another command, but it's not a big bother. And one of them, on your way to approaching, I always forget to check to see if I can see when they decide to do so, but at some point one of the 4 just runs into the main stronghold. You could kind of see their triangle there if you were paying attention to it. Just one of them. All the rest sit here and wait for you until you get really close, and then they'll move to intercept you, as these 2 did. And so whatever. But the AI's scripting in this has got some really interesting quirks in it, especially particular individual members who make choices that seem very odd. Chronicle 12, or 10, again, was another one where it's really, really interesting the way Oryx and Anoretta can choose to retreat or go forward, and you're never sure which they'll do. Okay, Aeneas, attack there. You wait. Aelion, you go ahead and approach. Tina, you go ahead and approach. Boss Lady, you wait a minute. Okay, now we're good. So now, even though I don't take this down as fast with only 4 people instead of 5, it saves a lot of time over the battles I'd have to fight if I allowed them to come and get to me. Now he doesn't choose to go away if I go this route. He's too far, but these ones will. Those two will be trying to retreat, but they can't, thanks to me taking this down. And even though it has a lot less hit points, your bandits do 1 less damage to main strongholds, so it slightly slowed them down. Infantry do the same normally. Your infantry at least do the same to both main strongholds and normal strongholds, which is that same amount that they do against it, 4 per hit. But against all other ones, of course, and their movement on the map, it's still generally better to have bandits for taking out strongholds. But it is one of the things that makes a couple of the base races that I get involved in my speedrun strats kind of scary and or impossible for ones I'd prefer to do. Like, I would love to be able to ignore all of the charging enemies against Gerardo and
Decisive battle.
but there's just no way it's viable.
Battle 1. Fight.
So here's Chester again. Yeah, Chester, the old bandit guy. He survived and was taken in by the Emperor and forced to be his manservant, which he's been spending the time plotting his revenge and stuff, but, you know, whatever. He's a level 60 swordmaster, but he's as weak and pathetic as always. At times, he'll make me eat my words and be powerful, but usually he's easier to beat than most of the newbies have been this game. Like, she did more damage to me than he did. And that's her final fight, hopefully. If this isn't her final fight, I'm in huge trouble. That was a really good Chronicle 14 or Chronicle 19, though. Just less than 14 minutes, I'll be on it, so I'll make up a little bit more time. And that will give me a bit of leeway to beat my PB going into Chronicle 20. My Chronicle 20 was somehow awesome, and I'm not sure how. Here, Bessie. 40 seconds, nice. Okay, so 5:28. As long as I'm under 10 minutes, I will PB, even if it's by a little bit. If I get anything close to it, I'll be a good PB. Okay, I need to go back to infantry now. I only need to do it for the people I'm taking along, though. Okay, here we go. So, there are a lot of enemies in the way. There are no strongholds, and these enemies will not move at all. Ooh, did it perfectly, yes. And as long as I don't start Soulcalibur combat, even if they fight to the death here, they'll continue moving afterwards. Gall, I'm good at it. I can't believe it. I'll explain that in a second. And so it's actually faster just to beat them up 5-on-1 on the field, since, you know, they don't join in multiples. And I can use my main character as a meat shield. She'll take a lot of abuse and hopefully won't die, especially with her high level. To absorb most of the hits, so more of the other 4 will be healthier. Once again, I lose the entire mission. There's no stronghold, so my characters won't recover, so this is it. And if I lose my main character, I lose the entire Chronicle and have to start it all over. In addition, if I get involved in a fight with strife with my main character, I get an unskippable cutscene, which I don't want, so I want to avoid that fate at all costs. So I don't want her involved in the fight, so if she takes some damage from these units on the way, and especially gets almost but not quite killed, that's better for me because that's damage that my other important characters aren't taking. Mega is the one who I want to take the least amount of damage, and unfortunately he's already started taking some. That's most unfortunate. It's very hard to control otherwise, though, without wasting more time, so it's not something I'm usually going to mess around with. Because Mega's as a samurai with the Mirasame, still has the best overall chance of beating the enemy. Now, when you're racing along these tracks, when you hit an area and you can't go a straight direction anymore, the game, differently on each track, will choose a direction for you to go. And here it naturally goes to the left, which I've generally allowed it to do, because it's quicker and easier than trying to force it to the right. It's a little bit tricky to do. But recently I was looking at it, and Noel here has more than 100 hit points, more than the guy on this side, so it takes him a few seconds, but still a decent amount longer time to do so. So we don't want him... Okay, good. He hasn't taken any more damage yet. So in general, we prefer not to fight him compared to the other guy. But again, it's sometimes tricky to... You go automatically. If you just go straight up, you'll go through him and straight through these other guys, no problem. But with this extra path to the side, when you're trying to lean that way, it's pretty easy to... go more around than you'd like and get stuck going in a circle if you're not careful. So it's kind of tricky, but my more recent runs I was practicing more and more to not get to that point. And I'm very proud of myself there for getting all 5 of them to do it perfectly. Just a few seconds overall, but you know, it's still worth it. The levels don't matter a whole lot, but I'm really hoping for, like, not my main character to get it at this point. Who's taking the damage? Mega again? Last. He's going to take most of the damage. He's almost going to die. That's very unfortunate. It is something I might have to... It's kind of consistent who takes the damage in these places. And going forward, I might have to try to manipulate some way of him, even if it takes a couple seconds not, because he's just too valuable. It's going to be really rough. Alien's the one I would like to sacrifice the most otherwise, but she didn't get hit, did she? Nope. Of course not. Well, let's see what happens. Don't know why his hair is white. That's how they created these characters. They decided to do a whole bunch of different looks and styles to show what you could do. If you're talking about Chester when he wasn't supposed to be before, that is a good question. I'm going to go ahead and attempt it. This could backfire. Actually, Tina next. Then Alien. Okay, let's see if I get lucky or not. I guess from near-death experience is why Chester's hair turned white, if that's what you're talking about. Good to see you, BLBO. You're actually the first person to mention in chat the entire run, so I wasn't really looking at it, focused as I have been on just doing the run.
Final battle, fight.
Okay, good. Phew. Very useful. Oh, blast. Oh, blast. Okay, I've still got hit points, though. Okay. Oh, I might do it. Ah, that's it. Yes, that wasn't bad. Wow, I was worried about that, but you done good, Mega. You done good. Oh, I usually do not do that easy with Sword Masters who have... His attack power is actually higher than any of my Sword Masters would be. Thanks, BLBL. BLs. Woo. That was... I kind of hoping to get that even lower than that, but considering how awful it started, it's nice to get that much of a gain since I lost. My early game struggles are pretty usual, but that Chronicle 8 horror I went through, I just did awful there. And then struggled on Chronicle 18 as well, where I should have made up a lot of time. A couple of other kind of rough things, but now the great ending dialogue scene I always show because it's short.
Emperor died. Both the
Emperor
blade and
died.
the holy blade
Not Emperor Strife,
disappeared
Emperor.
into darkness.
That's his name. Emperor
The
died.
empire collapsed, and the people were left only with devastated lands and the memories of the terrible war. The people, however, eventually forgot the hardships. They rebuilt the raised villages and sowed new seeds upon
And
the
coming up is the
destroyed
best
fields.
medieval statue ever constructed. With the wonderful power of medieval animatronics.
Then by the fireside, they
Just
told
take a look at the
tales,
hand.
the tales of the great ones who spilt their blood upon those lands.
Oh yeah. Stretch those fingers, statue. You earned it. So that's Soul Calibur 3 Chronicles of the Sword. First run I've done in about 4 months, I think, since I last did a thing for GDQ. So,
The legend
thanks for
will
watching.
never die.
I'll be doing more of this in the future, interspersed with my gold box runs. Those are my two main things, and I enjoy both of them equally. I have pretty much the few fans I have are split into 2 categories. Those who like watching my Soul Calibur and those who like watching my gold box, and I don't have too many crossing over, but, you know, whatever. In any case, we are now going to
Soulcalibur III.
go ahead and head over to Plexel's screen. And so now...
Heck yeah! Nice fight. That's my first ever 214 mega skill too. I was with playing it safe too because of just not being 100% confident that I was
Why
going
is
to
that
kill
coming
him
through
before
here?
Dark Matter 2 because of Frog not going totally crazy with crits.
I think it's coming
not
through
having
both,
fire
is the crazy
as
thing.
his last phase 1 weakness.
Okay. Oh, because
In
this isn't
Glitch
plugged in,
Run's
of course.
Fire 2 is his most dangerous attack because on the English version that's the only element that you don't have 90% resistance to.
Okay, I can pull that now. Did I kill you? I did. Excellent. Is it still going? That's amazing after 3 hours.